Hello and welcome back to Blood and Ashes. This is episode 70. I'm your host Mo, and I'm joined once again by my very old friends Jody.
Yeah, I'm old.
And Willie.
Good evening.
Hello, young people.
Do you attempt to do the link between the words I used to describe you guys and the content of the chapters on the spot, or
Yes.
No, on the spot.
Okay.
I'm so tuned into everything that is just right there. You say the word and I know age of a person. Everything fell together. But it also played, wasn't it a birthday recently for you, Jody? It was, wasn't it?
For who? For me?
No, that was Jethro.
It was Jethro.
He's also old.
Much like my kids, I confuse my friends. They're old, the same as me. Similar starting names.
Okay, time for being a broken record again, but man, there is a section of these chapters that I do not recall at all, despite having read it twice before. That whole meeting with the kin, like that, how everything plays out.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, obviously I remember that it happened, but the detail this time is surprising. Like,
Yeah.
shocked, really. I'm like, oh, wow, this all happened? Interesting.
That's generally my response when I pay attention to anything. I'm like, oh, wow, okay. Wow, that works. Oh,
What
that's
a
amazing.
difference paying attention makes, eh? Incredible.
It's massive. I've learned that I will never ever get rid of the desire to put a flat back piece of furniture together without looking at the book. But now I've conceded that sometimes it's just a little bit better to look at the just a glance at picture 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you're like, okay, cool, I got this. I'm confident now.
And then what do you do with the parts that are left over at the end?
It could
In
There's
the
always
bin.
parts left. I've chucked it in the top drawer. I've got that, so
Yes,
whenever I need a
the
screw
IKEA
or
drawer.
dowel or IKEA drawer, it's got everything and the instructions for when I need to move one day.
Yes,
It's
the
like,
instructions
okay, cool.
you never look at again. The Allen key to go with the 20 other Allen keys that you have in there of the exact
Strips
same
after the
size.
third use,
All
bad
the
tools.
little
Yep.
dowels and plastic plugs and all those things go together.
I
Yep.
wouldn't.
And
I
of
wouldn't
course,
mind.
every single one of the sets of the things that's supposed to anchor it to the wall that no one ever uses, but they've covered their ass by having it in the packet.
Hey,
They're
hey,
like, it's on you, buddy.
I used it. I actually changed. I had wheels on a cupboard, and now I've put it hanging on the wall. And I actually found those things, and I hung it up on the wall. They're under the TV.
Well
First
done,
time
Joe.
ever. Very proud of myself. Thank you. Thank
Wow.
you very much.
It must feel good as a homeowner to be able to drill holes into the walls and the studs and stuff without thinking about like, oh, how much is this going to cost me on the way out of this rental?
Yes, as a
Yeah,
homeowner.
that is a bad problem.
What were you going to say, Joe?
I was going to talk about Allen keys. 'Cause that's important. It's like I was
Off
going to
the
say,
wheel of time. Let's talk about Allen keys.
if they gave you a different size Allen key every time, you could have an awesome collection. But it's the same size Allen key
Yep.
over
Yep.
and over and over.
Yes, because it's the same
The
set
only
of
one
screws
that I
just to
hate.
keep things
I
uniform.
know, but fuck you guys. I don't need 20 that are the same size.
They're saying plug into our ecosystem. We've got everything covered. You'll have the extra pairs of these.
Is that the Swedish accent?
all European accents merge into one and eventually sounds Italian.
No offense to anyone.
Well, you know what's not the same is the contents of these chapters. Because after meeting the knitting circle and the old ladies, we jump to Shyle Ghoul and like hardcore true power revelations, and then back again to what felt to me like almost like a chapter from book 1, like the sense of adventure and stuff, that attack on the Fortress of the Light. I'll draw the parallels when we get to that chapter, but it was just such a cool mix of stuff that happened in this batch of chapters again that I'm ready to go.
Let's go then. Down some sort of garden path, perhaps, Willie?
Yes. Something we have plenty of here, garden paths. This particular garden path won't lead us to sodomy, but it will lead us to callbacks.
Just as bad.
Okay, so in the last episode, Jacob had written in and referenced something about Min solving the puzzle about Calandor, which we couldn't remember anything about. So I went and I looked it up, as is my wont, and it turns out that she figures out from studying the prophecies of the dragon that Rand needs to use Calandor at the last battle, which is, not such a great leap. Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But also that Calandor is a trap. If a man is using it to channel by himself and not in a circle, he can be drawn into a circle of women against his will, and they will control the circle, and he will not be able to leave it.
Rad.
Huge.
I do not remember any of that.
Why?
That flaw plays into the last battle. I won't elaborate on it here, but I read the section where that becomes relevant, and it is chef's kiss.
Okay.
Oh, speaking of the last battle. Sorry to interrupt. Callbacks. Christina's on book 14. She started the last battle.
Whoa.
She's just motoring ahead. So, yeah.
I mean, it's right to do. She can read again and catch up to us.
She finished book 13 in like 3 weeks. Like, just...
Amazing.
Like, wake up in the morning having our coffee. She won't even talk to me. She's sitting with the Kindle. I'm like, all right.
Yes.
I will allow it.
It's so good. Yes. It's one of those ones where I can't fight this one very well. No. I'm not even mad. I'm proud.
Yeah.
Then last time we also asked about why does it seem like the Aes Sedai are using the one power for menial tasks? Remember in the beginning the girls are told don't use this, and I made the comment that they do it often, and I didn't go find specific instances, but I stand by that comment. And what I think happened was that we witnessed Swan and other Aes Sedai cautioning the girls in the beginning not to draw too much of the one power as a safety precaution, because the feeling of channeling can be addictive, and there's always the outside chance that an untrained channeler tries to channel more than they're able to and burn themselves out. So it's likely just a precaution for newbies, contrasted with the Ashaman, obviously, who are forced to use it as much as possible. But I think Aes Sedai, who have been using it for a long time, know their limitations, are much more responsible with it, are a bit more cavalier about using it for... they're constantly lighting candles and lamps, all kinds of stuff for no real reason other than they can. Then we had a bit of a chat about the female-on-female water bond and how it behaves differently. Apparently that is a thing in universe. It's not just Elayne's perception of it. Emotions leak through, where with the male and female bond, Aes Sedai and water are merely aware of each other's emotions. They don't actually feel them, like what Elayne and Birgitte are doing at the moment. And we briefly mentioned the scene where Rand and Elayne finally have sex. Min and Avienda are already bonded to Rand at that point, and Birgitte to Elayne, and the three of them all feel the effects, so they all go get drunk together while Rand and Elayne catch up. It's actually very shortly after they all confront each other without Birgitte, and they all lay it all out there, and Rand is bonded to Min and Avienda like he is to Elayne. And then when everyone leaves, Rand says to Elayne, well, there's something I've done with the others that I've not done with you. And then they have sex together. And then Birgitte also stumbles upon them. She's like, what the fuck is Elayne doing? And they all just go get drunk on Usquai.
Good old Usquai.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's got a place, it's got a purpose.
Sure does. We talked about Matt, who, when he said the wandering woman is plenty good enough, when Elayne and Nynaeve are there apologizing to him and saying, come live in the Terrasen Palace. I went and I read that section again, and he begins saying that quite angrily, and then he stops with a wondering expression spreading over his face. A horrified expression, Elayne would have said. And then soon after that, Matt again says, or it says about Matt, he seemed not to have heard her or Nynaeve. Haggard eyes stared right through her. Why did they bloody well have to stop now, he moaned, so softly she barely noticed. So the dice did stop there. Now, in the days since making these notes, I've read the next two chapters in our block, and Matt is constantly referencing this. But what's also happened is that they started rolling again. So it's a perpetual craps game in Matt's head. I don't know what that means, really, and neither does Matt. What's pretty clear in the chapters coming is that Matt also doesn't know why they stopped. And like I mentioned in the previous episode, he says that the wandering woman is plenty good enough, but then when you read about him again, he's actually moving to the Terrasen Palace. So maybe what he's doing is he's realizing that he said something. Now he's trying to do the opposite thing, maybe to like see what would happen. He seems to be testing out what this is about. Because when he says, "No, I'll stay here," the dice stop rolling, and then immediately he does move to the palace. So what does that actually mean? But that's all from me. So now it's just listener contributions. And we have one from Kerry regarding Matt, Jolene, and Teslin. When they escape Ebou Dar and join Val and Lucas' menagerie, it's Cairhien that poses as Matt's love interest, not Jolene. And that she's running away from her Seanchan husband. And it is actually Teslin, the prickly red, that is very appreciative of Matt's help and pledges her help to him whenever he may need it. Teslin had been made Damane during Ebou Dar's fall. Jolene had not. So Jolene is not the one that is very grateful. Teslin is the one that actually says to him, "Thank you so much for what you did," and writes him a letter from the tower again. And yes, Matt does at one point give Jolene a spanking, and then he spends the rest of his time with the menagerie avoiding Jolene's warders.
I'm surprised they didn't.
As one should.
Thanks, Gary. And then Ian Yellen writes in again with the following. Firstly, he says, "Despite a great episode, I think your dislike of Cadsuane is funny since she's essentially the Aes Sedai version of Soralia."
Yeah, but we just hate Aes Sedai. I like the way.
And I also like, Soralia does not go out of her way to antagonize Rand. She stands her ground. She's not bossed around. You know, they make all the comments about the Karakhan not being, like a wetlander king and that sort of thing. But Cadsuane actually goes out of her way to piss Rand off. She says in that very chapter we read that she had to try and keep him off, off balance by prodding at him. So I think Soralia is infinitely more likable than Cadsuane, and not just because she is Aiel. Ian also says that though Alviarin wasn't involved in Rand's kidnapping, Galena Casban was, obviously, so Missana could have had something to do with it, which is basically the line of reasoning that I had followed in our previous episode as well. So maybe Samael is onto something, because you remember it was triggered by Samael saying to Grendel, Missana definitely had something to do with this, maybe even Demandred or Semirog. But I still think that Elida's phrasing made it sound like it was her idea when she's talking about her secret, when she's talking to Alviarin about it. But even that could be Elida's ego talking. If she and Galena incepted the idea and made it happen, Elida would be talking about it as if she came up with it. So who knows for sure. And then Missana could also be working directly with Galena, bypassing Alviarin, which is possible, but seems unlikely if she's trying to take hold of the Black Archer. Going to Alviarin would probably make sense since she is at the top of it. I think that Galena, though, is also on the Supreme Council, and while she might not be at the head of it, is in control of a lot of Black Archer sisters. So that's also a possibility. So I can't say for sure. It was definitely only Elida's idea, but I am still leaning in that direction. Then Ian says his last point is that the beggar may not have worked for Old Cully. Beggars are part of a guild that is strongly regulated and enforced. The position he has outside of the Wandering Woman might just be his assigned position, and his being there is simply a job, which is true, or could be true, and so both our points could be true, right? Like maybe he's not there spying for Old Cully, but he is there spying or providing information. So that's why when Nynaeve gives him a coin that could feed him for days, he doesn't leave. He stays right where he is because he's been given a post by someone. And that's it for callbacks. Quick one.
I'm wondering if was it really a quick one, or was it just because I zoned out and I just came back now.
Maybe you were in a vacuole and time moved differently for you. All right, so that brings us to previously on Blood and Ashes. Rand tries to save face with Aiel clan chiefs after his kidnapping by flashing his sweet tats and making Marana serve them tea. Berelain and Anura show up, and Berelain is mad that Rand is sending her back to Mayene, but before long, Cadsuane shows up and pushes everyone's buttons, asking Rand if he started hearing voices yet. Cadsuane dismisses Berelain and eventually leaves, taking Marana and Anura with her. Idrian arrives and tells Rand of Herodfel's death. Cadsuane leads the Aes Sedai to Bera and Karuna's rooms among the servants' quarters, where they squeeze in as many Aes Sedai as possible. Cadsuane grills them all about what has been happening, while everyone else is shocked by the fact that Cadsuane is even alive. Min arrives to tell Rand that Colavia has hung herself, and Rand tells her of Herodfel's death. They are both upset and comfort each other physically. Meanwhile, Savannah and some Shido have fled Dumai's wells toward Kinslayer's dagger, where they hope to meet up with the Rava and the other Shido. They used the call box given to her by Samael to summon him, posing as a wetlander called Kadar. He shows up in disguise, accompanied by Grandal, also in disguise. He tells Savannah he'll give her the object to control Rand once they have him captive. When Savannah asks if he has anything which can control female channelers, he has Grandal perform tricks to prove he can control Aes Sedai, but will give Savannah the means by which to do this for a much higher price. He also agrees to give the Shido travel boxes, which will allow them to travel great distances instantly so they can plunder richer lands. When Samael and Grandal leave, we see from Moridin's point of view how they have a brief argument before leaving through a gateway. We then cut to Mat, who has just fought off another kidnapping attempt. He shrugs it off as bad luck and returns to the Wandering Woman. There he's met in his room by Birgitte, who calls him out on his obvious secrets. He is the sounder of the Horn of Valir and seems to speak the old tongue in perfect dialects from a past only she can remember among the living. Mat recognizes her as Birgitte Silverbow from when he summoned the heroes of the Horn, and the two agree to keep each other's secrets, then head out to get hammered. We switch to Elayne, Nynaeve, Avienda, Tom, and Julian in the Terrasen Palace, waiting to hear back from Birgitte, who went to tell Mat that he must help them find the Bowl of the Winds. Elayne is standing at the window, acting more and more drunk as Birgitte sinks ales with Mat and Beslin. She weaves disguises for fun and makes Nynaeve look like a bare-chested sea folk woman, much to Avienda's entertainment. Soon after Birgitte arrives, quite drunk, and Tom and Julian are sent away so the woman can talk. Birgitte tells them that Mat will help if Elayne and Nynaeve apologize to him. Birgitte thinks he's within his rights to ask too, and Avienda agrees. She tells Elayne they have much tow to Mat and Julian, and an apology will only be the beginning of making up for it. The next morning, Elayne and Nynaeve go to the Wandering Woman to apologize to Mat. They find him incredibly hungover, but Elayne proceeds to apologize and promise to treat him fairly. Nynaeve resists the whole way through, but eventually apologizes, and Mat agrees to help them. When they ask him to move to the Terrasen Palace, he declines, and immediately the dice stop rolling in his head. Elayne and Nynaeve leave, but are pulled aside by Satel Anan, who thinks they are tower runaways pretending to be Aes Sedai. Before the girls have a chance to convince her, she tells them off and says she'll take them to a group of women that help girls like them. Elayne is still being indignant when Nynaeve realizes there might be an organization of female channelers in the city, and they might know about the Bowl of the Winds, or where to find it, so she plays along, much to Elaine's disgust. And that brings us straight to our first chapter today, which is chapter 23, called Next Door to a Weaver. Why don't you weave us a summarized tale there, Willie?
It's a good one. I thought about something all day long if you failed.
Well, now we need to know what it was.
I keep on thinking about something about next door. What is next door? But never did I think about weaving anything. I'm such a fool, am I not? Didn't see the obvious.
Didn't even look at the
written
verb.
down in front of me. I know. I did. Jody, thanks.
Just pointing out the obvious.
Yep. All right. Now, we are not dealing with weavers, and there's no point of even weaving a tale about weavers. So let's weave along to Elayne and Nynaeve, who's being escorted down to the kitchens by Mistress Anan. And Elayne is not all too happy about this play along, but she is tolerant at the moment with the chin a little bit raised. She's at chin raise level 1 at the moment. So we'll just track her chin raising levels as we go along. Now, of course, Mistress Anan and all the cooks speak so highly of the Lord Mat, the young lord, and how these girls trying their luck, but it's not really his type. He likes his girls a little bit with a little bit more wiggle. I think what's the word? Don't quite know how our girl gets more wiggle, but anyway. Now this is where Mr. Sanan actually grabs Elayne and Nynaeve by the ears, which is chin level 2 for Elayne, who's now being manhandled by the ear. Outrage ensue. But calmly, Mistress Anan now tells them that they will follow her, and if not, they'll just get reported. Look, this is a great fear now, because everyone thinks, like, fake Aes Sedai girls playing at Aes Sedai. Elayne takes all of these insults, and she is still at, I said, chin level 2, allowing it to play out, and they are being led now through alleyways, over bridges, and it turns out into a half-a-day walk, also half a day's worth of words that isn't got a very much bearing over situation. But as she goes down, she's popping in at every inn to make sure that they see the girls and that the girls will not be welcome there, because she's basically spreading like these girls, bad news. Don't tolerate them or whatever. We're not sure. It's off screen. But Elayne and Nynaeve puts this together as well, or Elayne more so. Now Elayne is starting to get to the end of her tether after being dragged around for the whole day, and her patience is running out. And she starts telling Elayne starts telling Nynaeve everything that they could be doing, starting off with some blueberry tea and yada yada, this and that long. But Nynaeve just has to just stick it out. I've got a good feeling about this. She could feel the dice tumbling in her own heads at this moment, I assume. But also quite good of Nynaeve to at this point have a little bit of vision. For one, she's the one that's actually, there's a bit of not really a switch, I'd say, in personality or in character traits, but she is showing a more mature detective.
Yeah.
Like, let's see where this goes. Like, don't let your ego get in front of you right now. Like, let this play out. They're not going to kill us. They can't. So, I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to report us to the Aes Sedai at the palace. Thanks. Give us a ride home. That'd be great. Anyway. And she mentions, obviously, like, there's talk of a society, there's talk of a circle, and in Ebou Dar, there's a guild for that purposes. So there's a guild for everything. So it would make sense that there's a bit of a guild. So she's really picking up all the little bits of information, putting it together like a real Sherlock Holmes today. And for Nynaeve, of course, the positive spin-off of all of this is if they do find the bowl of the winds through this lead played out, it's got nothing to do with Mat.
That's her
But
whole
Elayne reminds her,
motivation.
like, no, we went to see him.
Yeah.
Just us going to him gave it to us. Like, just, you're not going to get that. Now she's angry with Giato because this is now absurd that she's going to this level of equality for Mat. Mat doesn't deserve good treatment. Nynaeve also, despite being aware of her outward appearance and playing calm and into this, being led by this woman the whole day, she is herself raging inside. She's furious, but she doesn't want to let it show. She's like, I mean, this is new territory. Her keeping it in for so long, a whole day. You get this is breakfast was cooking when they went to see Mat. Mat was hungover in the bed. We're eating the afternoon now. They're getting eventually to this house, and after this long walk, past all of the shit in the city that is there, because they mention everything. Like, from what this, anyway, go read it. I'm not going to run through it.
Please, no.
No, I can't. They are mentioned to be brainless honey kisses. It was a term for just like gold diggers.
Gold diggers, yeah.
Just, yep, there you go. But Nynaeve remains steadfast in the belief that these women will lead them to the bowl. She will not cave after all of these insults and everything. Finally, they get to the house that is next to a weaver shop and also next to a tannery. Looks pretty neglected. Imagine an old warehouse. There was the tannery, there's the weaver, and the guy that made wooden rugs before. Like, before rugs were invented and ran out of business. So a shop front there, and they getting taken into the perfect kill site. That's
an elaborate lore you've built out here.
The history of the
I've got to
tannery.
think about this.
But what happened to the weaver?
It was a thing. It was a family thing, Moritz. No, the previous one shut down. It was an inheritance.
Yeah,
the kids fought
we
over
see
it.
your wooden carpets.
Yeah,
Yeah. A
right.
tale as old as time.
exactly.
Yep. Now, the good news is that I can sense there are women channeling inside the house and incrementally more and more so. So this is now not, this is, okay, cool, we've hit it. Elayne now starts, okay, slowly getting over to this idea. The girls are then led into a room and they're told to sit down. Mistress Anan goes and sees and eventually brings someone in to see her. And this is where we are introduced to Rihanna. Rihanna Corley, who looks very, very young, but of a senior standing, it would seem. And she's quite upset that this has happened. Like, how could you lead them here? But she's like, oh, look, I'm really sorry. This is, she knows, got to get out. Mr. Sanan is addressed then by this younger woman with, as I said, with a lot of disbelief about everything else. And finally, Rihanna then addresses the girls, and Nynaeve tries to like, okay, cool, we've found you. Like, let's talk about the bowl of the winds. Like, we're all grown, and she gets politely shut down. Like, no, stop with your charade. And Elayne is now chin level 3. She notched another level. Then a short, stout Cairhien woman enters that they can sense a little bit of power on her. Berowyn. We'll hear that name a lot. I remember. I do recall she plays quite a bit of over the next while. And Garenia. Who's Saldaean. Yeah. Not gonorrhea.
God. No.
Not gonorrhea. Okay. Keep that in mind.
Okay, there's some backstories about these women, their ages, their descriptions, the look of them and all of that. I'm not going to get into that. I'm rather going to keep track of their names and just where they're from, because I've got nice little boxes for all these people now. Now Elayne is now, as I said, chin level 3, not stoked, being treated like this. Nynaeve again now tries to listen into conversation without channeling and tells her like just shush it when she's whinging and whining about this treatment, and again maybe having some blueberry tea. But she's trying to hear what Rhiannon, Berowyn, and oh god, now I'm going to say gonorrhea every time. Are talking. Then in comes a older woman that is looking to be in a position of a maid. However, they can sense that she too can channel. And then Nynaeve also overhears that they say, okay, what did she do to get penance? And then she puts all of this together. She look, there's channelers, penance, there's a structure here. She's still playing super detective, Sherlock Holmes through the roof there. Now, the other thing that the astute Nynaeve picks up is that Berowyn has got the red belt, which means she's also a wise woman. So she she's obviously healing people. So the guise of what they can do. And then these women, while they're looking and thinking and detectiving, all quiet and unprepared, the woman turn and strike on them immediately, and shields are in place. Bam. And of course, Nynaeve is angry enough after this day, and she just tries to break this shield that's woven. And it's like a flexible, malleable bubble that she can just push against, and then it comes back. And then she's reminded, like, you can try as much as you go. I can hold one of the Forsaken. Like, this is the one thing that I can do.
Who was it holding the shield
let's
again?
talk.
Is that Berowyn?
Berowyn, yes. So, like a very unique shield. Very interesting.
Yes, it's not how shields behave in the story. In the magic system.
No.
Hers is
This is the flexible shield. It's more like a net. I'm always like, you are netted in. You can push against the net in the water. You're not going to get out of the net.
Can't break it, no.
I suppose. Nynaeve again tries. Nynaeve, angry Nynaeve, the woman that we said cannot do anything but anger, now for the third time tries to have a civil conversation and say, hey, look, we are who we are, and again gets shut down. No, now's this time. We're going to see if you really were in the tower. What are you? They are doing their own Sherlock Holmesing on the two of them now, and a barrage of question time. What door to what library can you use, and what's it called? And Nynaeve knows very little of this because she was never a novice. But Elayne obviously can answer quite a bit of this, and she's a very devout student, so she knows a lot of stuff. So novice life gets walked through. Nynaeve gets air whipped when she gets a little bit lippy. She gets a little bit of a slap from Miss
Rianne Corley.
Yeah, Rihanna. Gave her a bit of a slap there. Then they start asking, explaining what they can do, start a new life for them when they accept now that thinking that they're runaways from the tower, posing as Aes Sedai, but they can take them in, they can spend some time on the farm, they can start a new life, and they can get into this little hidden society without admitting yet that there's a society, but they can be looked after. Elayne has had enough. She's now chin level 4. Her neck can't physically cock back anymore now without her falling over backwards. And she puts her ring back on and she drops titles, names, and you're my subjects and everything else. And then get told by Gorinia to stop sprouting these lies, Stilgil, and gets shut down. She is not happy. But she then says to Nynaeve, like, look, I've had enough. And Nynaeve, like, okay, cool, fine. Does the same thing. I am Nynaeve from the Yellow Aja and Egwene, and they were raised, and she's much younger. And the whole story comes out. And they then get basically put out of their other tower as well and said, look, you can't conform. Like, we're not even going to take a chance on you. It puts a few silvers in their hand and said, by tomorrow, you'll be out of the city because we are going to report you to the White Cloaks and we're going to report you to the Aes Sedai in the tower. And between the two of you, it's not safe here. Everyone in the inns know about you already, basically. Futzak, get out of here. To which they, again, Nynaeve again tries.
Yeah.
But no dice. The door's shut. And they are literally put out. And that is the end of that chapter. I feel that I should roll on. And we discuss it as one because it just keeps flowing.
Okay.
Philly's on a roll.
All right. So the next chapter is chapter 24 called The Kin. Can you do another one for us, Phil?
I can continue.
Can you continue for us?
I can continue. Anyway, incredible is the thoughts. There's like the strength of these women. Now we are back inside the house in the room with the three, not Aes Sedai women, but that can channel that are very old. And they are just astounded. Like Rihanna's thinking this, but Perrin says, hey, they didn't sweat. Like, maybe we got this wrong. But either which way, they start getting thoughts around this. They are very unsure and they fear that they might be outed. So they now think that, look, is the possibility there that we are outed here to the tower? Are they going to come crashing down on us? Maybe we should make arrangements for our safety and how we keep the secret. The topic, of course, is raised about Setalanan and how she knows about it. Then the backstory does come out. Rihanna actually saved Setal's life when she was giving birth to her son and very close to death, and through that had to bring in the circle, and there was healing and yada yada yada. She knows. But then she also says, but look, she's an astute woman. She's been having an inn in this place for 20 years. She picks up every little word. This is the type of person that would know any which way. Then Darius, the other woman that can channel that, is doing her penance because, backstory, her penance is handed down because she wanted to marry. And it appears that there's no marriage allowed in this knitting circle. So she's got a penance for that. But in comes Sangria Footstool Van.
What?
Serenia Vostavan.
Sangria Footstool.
Yes, Serenia Vostavan. And she announces that Callie is dead. Don't know who Callie is, but Callie had a throat slit and had a lot of stuff stolen off her down to her stockings. However, Samuka, that can do other one power magic, can sense that she was killed with the one power. So they don't know which is true. either which way, that is done, and then they update her around the whole situation, and a plan is formed. It's the end of that little chapter. And then we jump to the next little bit, which is Nynaeve and Elayne walking back very far from where they are, and a long period of silence. And Nynaeve having an inner monologue about how she is not incredibly happy that it didn't play out, and she's going to have to apologize. And she plays out a whole thing that doesn't even happen. And eventually, Elayne pipes up and says, like, how old do you think she was? Which completely stumbles Nynaeve. Like, what do you mean, how old? Anyway, long story short, I get into conversation about aging, and referencing to some of the Aes Sedai or the novices that got never raised and how old they looked. And it turns out that Elayne had seen one of these that they thought were 40 years old, or I can't even remember what it was, but her youngest sister came and visited, and her youngest sister was already like in her grays. So she's like,
These are
"We
Aes
don't
Sedai
quite-"
in the tower, right? Like,
Yeah.
or an accepted or someone.
Yeah, it's a
but
novice.
pre-oath
It's
rod.
a novice or an
Yes.
accepted that's been there forever, that's
Yeah.
never been raised. But then when they get to see her to a 10-year youngest, her own blood sister, then they like realize, holy shit, her 10-year younger sister is already in a grey. So she's
Yeah.
well and truly an elder woman. And then putting it together that Rihanna must be well and truly old for how
Yeah.
grey she is.
If they can channel and they look
Hmm.
old, they must be ancient.
Yes, pretty much. Astute from Elayne. She doesn't do the immediate Sherlock Holmes. She does the little bit in the background,
Yeah.
deeper analysis Sherlock Holmes. But their whole Sherlock Holmesing about aging and the elixir to longevity in life has been interrupted by an arrow fired from somewhere that has a stone head on, which grazes Nynaeve but gives Elayne a proper blue lump on the head. And at the same time, a hook-nosed woman and a man, and oh, your friend's fallen ill, and there's a lot of hands, and there's a lot of people all of a sudden, and it all seems very orchestrated. Cutpurse on the side of the road sees this. He's like, oh, this is my opportunity. He's going to slice a coin pouch from Nynaeve, and she just had enough, and it's weaving magic time. And she's got airflows, everyone's pushed away, everything's ready. Don't need help. Thank you. Move on. But not a good situation that they find themselves in there. And I think that is where the chapter ends.
Sort of.
Okay.
Well, Elayne and Nynaeve, Elayne is knocked down. She doesn't just have a blue lump. She's knocked out by an arrow.
She's knocked down. Nynaeve catches her.
Isn't she KO'd? Like she's knocked unconscious.
I read it as knocked
Yeah,
unconscious.
she comes together,
Yes.
knocked to the floor, and
She's knocked out.
Channels heals her.
And Nynaeve is almost hit by a different arrow. It's not like an arrow that hits both of them. Like someone was targeting both of them. Nynaeve moved at the last second and she's only grazed. And when Elayne is knocked out and all these people converge on them, Nynaeve is still compass mentis enough to sort of push them all away.
I thought it was one arrow. I missed that. I thought it was one arrow that half hit Nynaeve, grazed her, and hit Elayne.
Elayne is knocked out first, and then the arrow comes at Nynaeve. Was my reading. Anyway, then after all this has transpired, Nynaeve helps Elayne up. The lady, the seamstress, comes to offer them some water, and Nynaeve turns her away and says, no, we don't want to, like, now Nynaeve is on high alert, right? Like, I'm not just going to drink something from a stranger anymore. And the seamstress is like, okay, fine, have it your way. She walks off, and when Elayne sort of comes to again, they sort of prepare to walk off, and Elayne says something along the lines of, well, this whole circle of women that can channel thing didn't work out, so at least we can still go back to Matt tomorrow. We can do it. And Nynaeve starts crying.
That's right. Yes, Elayne was very hungry when she got healed by Nynaeve on the floor there after Nynaeve dispersed the crowd.
Yeah.
And obviously wanting the water and not quite understanding the seamstress.
Yes.
And who made the mental note that, oh, she actually does quite nice work. We might have to revisit the street.
Yes.
Have a look at her.
It's while
Is that
Elayne is
Nynaeve?
talking, Nynaeve is looking at the shop, thinking about like how the
the
quality of the
wares in the
seamstress's
shop.
work. Yes.
She's really
Remember
turned
what
into a
happened?
little dress.
Oh, Nynaeve,
person.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's always for Lan. I'm sure like Lan would like that dress. Ooh,
He
Lan
likes
would
blue.
Like that color.
He also likes green though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But remember what happened the last time that those two girls accepted a drink from a seamstress in a town?
Yes.
Didn't turn
So,
out well.
not accepting any more drinks from seamstresses. Thank you very
No.
much.
Also, I thought that whole sort of scene was orchestrated, like the guy coming out of the alley and jumping out of the coach and the coach pulling up. Like, I didn't think that was like a dude just taking a chance. I thought the whole thing was them
Well,
trying to
that
kidnap
leaves
them.
us to the bigger question, right? We were led and introduced to the kin. The kin leaves this chapter basically off, let's make a plan. I don't think it's them that orchestrated that so quickly. It's impossible. There must be archers placed, there must be wagons ready, but they do know that they are coming from that area. So,
Well,
a
it
lot of
was very
questions.
public that they were coming into the area. And I think Nynaeve or someone even thinks about like how in their silk dresses, no one else here is wearing silk dresses or something. So with, Satel and Nan stopping at all the inns and stuff and talking to everyone, like their progress was also not straight. They didn't go from A to B. They zigzagged around a lot. Satel was going out of her way to talk to people. And I think just a lot of people were aware of like, look at these two, noble girls or like well-to-do girls with their silk dresses walking around in this part of town. It wasn't in the Rahad or anything like that, but it was still, I think, the rougher end of the non-Rahad part.
Yeah, they were in the industrial area. Yeah,
So maybe it
weavers
was
and
just
craftsmen and carpenters.
thieves, opportunistic thieves who sort of knew
That
that
is
they were
a very,
in the area.
very extraordinary plan. Like to knock out, not kill, or like the chance of bludgeoning someone on the head with a club or something and kill, like break a skull.
It
Like
is a
it's
weird
very,
one.
like a little arrow with a stone, like it very purposefully, like
They knew that they
Non-lethal.
were channelers. That's why they shot them with arrows from a distance and why they didn't just come up behind them. They didn't want to get close. They wanted to take them out. So this is how I get it. It's like they knew that they were channelers and were trying to take them out.
But Vinny's point is, why didn't they use normal arrows? Like, why were they trying to use non-lethal
'Cause they-
arrows? Like, why knock
So
them
that they
out?
could take them somewhere. They were
no,
being kidnapped. They're not
the
being
plan
killed.
was there. They're being kidnapped.
So I always thought this is not just opportunists. This is somebody was following them, like had a plan to kidnap them.
Who are the candidates?
That's my question. Like, I don't know who the
Well,
fuck, because we know that.
we got the sisters from the tower in the city as well, don't we?
Jolene and Teslin.
No.
Jolene and Teslin are the sisters from the tower.
Yeah, but they wouldn't go through all of this hassle, would they?
No.
No.
It goes against their character motivations.
Yeah.
They specifically said they're not going to do anything like try and kidnap the girls and take them back to the tower.
Yeah, they
wasn't it? Yeah.
basically
The last
having their
episode.
own internal rebellion to suss out both sides.
I mean, who's also here is Ispan and who's the other one? Is it Katerin Elridin or Tamali? Two of those blacks. That's who I assume killed Callie. The Sumiko says that
Yes.
that wise woman, that kin lady, was killed using the one power. I'm assuming it's the wise woman we see Ispan
Yes.
kill in a previous chapter. Maybe it was them.
Well, that would fit because the other one is Cairhien, but he wants Matt.
Yeah. So
But Cairhien also wouldn't use the power to kill anyone. He doesn't have that access.
No, I mean to like to shoot arrows
kidnap.
at them and stuff.
to
Do you-
kidnap
it's
Elayne
a group
and
of
Nynaeve.
yeah. So
Maybe because they went to see Matt. Matt's being watched. Big focus given to the assassin woman to watch Matt. And that's all that Cairhien cares
Millie
about.
Skane.
The girls, Millie Skane. So the girls went to seek out Matt. They then, okay, these women are looking for Matt. Could maybe a connection that these are friends or relation and think, cool, this is an opportunity to bag Matt
Maybe.
to take them.
Use them as bait.
Bait.
Ballsy move to try and
That
kidnap
isn't
two
a-
channelers.
I was about to say, and
But
the strongest
does she
channeler.
know that they are channelers? Because
Yeah,
they,
but that's what
people
that's
in
the
the inn
argument
do
for the
because they throw the whole Sitalan
non.
because they announce themselves.
Do we know for a fact that it is not the kin that did this, that are trying to bundle them out of town?
I don't think that there is the time from them having
Yeah.
to have. There just isn't
just
the time
left.
in this. They just left. It's not how RJ would anyway write it if it was.
Doesn't Rianne Corley mention here some command that was given?
I don't know.
There was something.
But yeah, it's not enough time. I agree with Willie.
No, I know. I agree.
So you did give them like 24 hours to leave. Give them some time to leave, and then perhaps this seems very orchestrated and lethal. Like, I mean, something could go wrong with one of those arrows, and you could kill him. No, I don't think it's not the kin. It's definitely either Dark Friends or the Black Usher. It's one of those groups, or
Kin
both of them.
won't take the risk to attack a sister, and they're in doubt right now that they are sisters. Like, they're sitting there saying, whoa, they didn't sweat. They are adamant. They didn't change his story, and they actually could see they got to the point of holding back. Nynaeve held the grace and serenity of an Aes Sedai for the first time, during a lot of shit that would have pissed her off normally.
There's an inkling of doubt from them, but I think they have decided that they are not Aes Sedai. I mean, they would first of all not speak to Aes Sedai or treat them that way. They say after the questioning that Rianne says that Elayne, she probably had some tower training and then ran into Nynaeve along the road, who's never set foot in the tower, because Nynaeve was never a novice. So Nynaeve doesn't know any of the novice trivia that they ask. And like you said, Elayne is a bookworm, so she knows. So Elayne could rattle off all the things. And none of the questions that they ask them either are about anything about being Aes Sedai, because all of the kin were only ever novices or accepted. So they don't know the Aes Sedai. So all the quizzing is about like which door the accepted allowed to use in the library, or like blah, 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 that sort of stuff. And they figure, Elayne had some tower training because there's a lot of stuff she knows, but the other one doesn't know anything. And Nynaeve, by the way, is the one that became accepted first, but she skipped a bunch of stuff, so that's why she didn't know it. Anyway, I think they've decided that they are not Aes Sedai. Otherwise, they wouldn't have treated them this way. So I think the argument of them not using stone arrows to knock them out, I think, is actually strengthened by that, because they don't want to kill them. They don't think they're Aes Sedai, that sort of thing. But the time is what's...
I get that the timeline just doesn't. There's no way that this circle would not have a backhand group of arrow-ready bandits with wagons and hook noses and finely dressed at the command to kidnap.
The girls left the house and then walked for some time. The walk between this weaver's, or next door to a weaver, and the Terracin Palace is long. A long one. And anyone in a wagon could catch up to them quite easily. So if they had resources available to them, they could have organized it. I don't think that it's impossible for it to have happened. But to counter my own argument, the demeanor of these people that are trying to kidnap them are quite obviously villainous. Like, they are made out to be cut purses and kidnappers and criminals.
I think the cut purse in the mix took just the opportunity. He saw a gap. He was like, these girls aren't shit, but their purse is going to be mine. And then he got manhandled.
All right, this is the very tail end of this chapter. We still have a previous chapter to cover as well. So is there anything that you guys wanted to say about the actual Next Door to a Weaver chapter?
I suppose it's just really a tremendous amount of introduction and long-winded walking, and it's just we finally get the names of these women.
It's another group of female channelers with a whole bunch of new names that we all have to learn and figure out.
And rules.
Oh, God.
And structures and hierarchies. Maybe this is why it all seems so new, because at the time that I read it the other times, it was always like, oh, God, okay, just
not
get
again.
through it so I can get to the good stuff again.
That's very possible.
It's quite likely. The cook at the Wandering Woman has a marriage knife with 12 stones on it. That means she has 12 children.
And she is also the roundest woman that Nynaeve has
Yes, everything
ever
about her
seen.
is round.
Everything is round. And she just doesn't know how the woman gets all that roundness into her dress.
There's a funny moment when they're walking across, the Mulhara is that square. Nynaeve thinks that Elayne is getting violent, hanging out with Avienda, when Elayne says she's going to kick Nynaeve the length of the Mulhara. And then Nynaeve thinks to herself, she'll have to slap some sense into both of them.
Yeah.
Nynaeve.
Yes, Nynaeve.
Oh, Nynaeve gonna Nynaeve. In that meeting with the kin, the Saldaean woman, Garenia, she has an interaction with Satal. I don't think we mentioned this, but Satal brings the girls, they speak, and then Satal is sent away. She leaves, and the rest of the interactions are just with the kin. But Satal, when she gets there, when she sees Garenia, she says to her, "You remind me of a woman by the name of Zaria Alkazi or something like that." And Garenia says, "Oh, yes, that's my great aunt. That we bear a very strong resemblance." She is Zaria Alkazi. She was accepted and ran away from the tower 70 years before this. So Satal recognized that woman from the tower. And she'd taken on this other name and said, no, that's not me. Don't look over here. Look over there. Bye. See you later. And some other people in the kin, when they come in there, it wasn't Garenia, but it was someone else. They're like, oh, was that Satal Anan? Like, they all know about it and speak about her in sort of like hushed tones, almost in a level of awe, because they must know that she at one point was an Aes Sedai, and even though now she can't channel anymore, they show her the respect and the deference that they would an Aes Sedai. Either that, or just the fact that she knows their secret. Like it's a very weird circumstance that led to Satel figuring out what their whole deal was. Sumiko is someone I remember reading about a lot.
The name is very familiar.
I'm like, oh, Sumiko.
Yeah, she's super good at healing. And I think she and Nynaeve have a lot of interactions. So Sumika's story, she failed her test to be raised to the shawl and left the tower as an accepted. So she got pretty far, but failed that last test. She's pretty strong in the power, strong enough for traveling, so she can create gateways. She's extremely skilled at healing, and she learns Nynaeve's method of healing with all 5 flows quite easily. Like Nynaeve shows it to her, and she goes, "Oh, like this," and she just does it. Where other yellows and other Aes Sedai have struggled to do the things that Nynaeve does, she gets it immediately. She eventually becomes the eldest of the kin after Rian Corley is killed. So Sumiko becomes the leader of the kin, which is probably why you read about her a lot. And she actually eventually is one of 2, I think, kinswomen that helps Mat dispatch the golem. So Sumiko is right in the mix. That Garenia as well, who was the runaway from the tower, she's also really strong in the power. As strong as Romanda, Lelaine, Moraine, and as Swan was. So Nynaeve notes like, whoa, this lady's pretty damn strong in the power. It's because she's as strong as some of the most
really
powerful
strong channelers in them. What was also quite cool to note was Berowyn still holds the hope that one day the tower will let them all back in, like that belief there, which is, or maybe does she have a little bit of prophetic or
No, I think she's just
something?
hopeful.
I know,
She's just hopeful, but she's not wrong.
No,
I
she's not
think
wrong.
she is later used to actually shield one of the Forsaken.
That's why I think that we do read it out. Remember that when the kin names come out, you obviously remember Satal Nun and the linking of it. Like that's one thing, but I forgot that Satal Nun is not part of the kin. She has her own little story, and then but she knows of the kin and just always been quiet about it.
She's just the link.
And she's just a link that links that, and looking out for good Lord Mat. What a nice young gentleman.
He is. I dig him.
They talk here about a bitter little fruit called a lemon. Robert, have you had a lemon? Sour. Surely.
Maybe in this turning of the wheel, they hadn't quite got that sourness right. It was still bitter.
It's more like
It
a
was still a
grapefruit.
bitter plant back then, yeah.
Maybe they were just eating it like through the skin. They're just taking bites of it and going, like, oh God, this is bitter.
I think Matt says something at one point in the coming chapters about having a drink that's like lemon. He's like, I don't know about that. I'll stick to the bad wine and the ale.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the kin. Anything else about the kin before we move along?
It's coming. Lots more about the kin.
Yes, we'll have plenty of time to dwell on them. Yeah.
There was something else about the kin, but it evades me now. I'll go tonight in the middle of the night like, aha, that's what I wanted to say. It was going to be so good.
Tweet us at Blood and Ash Pod or leave us a voice message on the Blood and Ash's web.
Leave a voice message, Billy.
I forgot this.
3 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, then chapter 25 is called Mind Trap. Speaking of traps, here's another chapter summary from yours truly.
Woo!
Looks like you're spot on with the chapter icon, Joe. Forsaken. It's the snake going
Totally,
in
man.
and out of that square thing.
Yeah.
Which is known.
Why don't you... Oh, I had something for Mind Trap. I had really had a good one.
Come on, Billy.
Come on, man. Lay it on us. Come on. This is fun for the whole family. Everyone can play the Segway game.
Yeah, I'll play the Segway game. It will come.
Okay. So, chapter 25 starts with Moghedien trapped in a recurring nightmare. It starts with Halima freeing her from the collar in the rebel camp. She notices the woman is not using Saidar and thinks she could be using the true power, but only the chosen are granted that honor. So the true power really featuring heavily in these chapters recently, which is cool. So now there's like introduction Moridin and this, and then later again with Moridin, like really talking about it a lot. So RJ is bringing us up to speed. Moghedien, now free, weaves a gateway to Sha'al Ghul, where she's been summoned, and skims on a small platform with a chair to give herself time to think. When she arrives at Sha'al Ghul, she is met by Shada Haran, who commands her to follow. While she's dreaming all this stuff, she is aware of it being a dream and the repetition that the dream is playing over and over and over, and she tries desperately to wake up, but the dream continues, and she follows the towering half-man through the entrance of this tunnel to the pit of doom. And as she enters, she is so terrified, she then forgets that this is a dream, and everything just feels real to her all over again. As they move down the tunnel, the rocky spikes on the roof seem to clear the Fade's head by some margin, but they cramp the shorter woman to the point that she has to first stoop and then later crawl, and by the end of the tunnel slither on her belly while the spikes tear at her dress and her flesh, despite being prostrate. I didn't remember it being that intense. Like, I remember the concept of like, oh, it's way over Shada Haran, who's like 7 feet tall or something. It goes way over his head, but the people walking behind him, who are generally shorter, do have to like stoop. I couldn't remember it being like, I mean, so it would be like a foot tall at the end when she's slithering out. And like, even though she's on her belly, it's like tearing her clothes and her back. I mean, that is hectic.
The only thing that visually can make sense to me in what's happening there is if you were to look at a black hole and how it bends the light around it. Like Shada Haran is like the black hole walking through this void, and everything
like
around him
warping it.
expands, and he moves through, and she's dragged in the little tail, and everything comes down on her. Like she's just being kept in that little bit of light.
Yeah.
That's a very cool way of looking at it, really.
And dragging
I
her
like that.
basically through and being ripped apart.
Yeah.
You want to fuck around with a dark one, this is what happens. It's your own fucking fault.
Totally.
Saying that, Shada Haran is through the roof leveled up. So envision him at the power of a black hole now, because we're talking in the dark stuff here. This is the dark chapter. I was very surprised that I didn't get it.
This is by design. I don't want to tempt you any further. We are introduced that, Rand leveled up, Gawain leveled up, Nynaeve's leveling up, and everyone's like, and the good sides also. But hey, Moridin, new introduction. Shada Haran. We've got Agenor and Baltamulvat. Anyway, we have others renamed, rebirth. So everyone they are two now saying, cool, we have to up our game. We've got to get ourselves stronger, make stronger spawn, find these special tools. We need the Sangreal. We need the Perangreals. So it's nice to see there's a bit of focus on them also. I'm sure it's nice for you.
It is. So good.
Yeah, Shada Haran is supposed to be like the physical embodiment of the Dark One in this world. So apparently the bending of reality at Shayol Ghul, specifically the stalactites bearing down on Moghedien and not Shada Haran, is said to be an example of how the Dark One often made his displeasure known. So like, this is like a known way of the Dark One messing with people. It's just fucking with reality. And it would be pretty disconcerting. Anyway, after this harrowing tunnel journey, she emerges on the ledge next to the Lake of Fire. As she tries to push herself up off the ground, Shada Haran steps hard on her back, driving her to the floor. She still doesn't understand why this half-man is being so brazen, but she can't channel the one power here without permission. She can feel the strong presence of the true power here, though. But to attempt channeling it here, she would be burnt to a cinder.
Yeah.
It's like the place is, I think the word she uses, awash with the true power. It's pretty intense. She tries to reprimand Shada Haran, but he just looks at her like an insect. And then she hears the Dark One's voice in her head, who starts berating her for failing so miserably, allowing herself to be captured and then teaching those who oppose them. And Moghedien comes clean here about teaching Elayne and Nynaeve a supposed way to tell if a man is channeling, but all it did was give them headaches, bad ones that left them unable to channel for hours afterwards. I was wondering, like, is that true, or is she embellishing a bit there? Did it?
Sy
we
maak die
remember
pap
if the
'n bietjie
girls-
dik aan.
They got headaches, but I can't remember them saying that they couldn't channel afterwards. But
It's kind of like, look, she did well in the sense that she created a headache, which Helima then saw as her opportunity in close to Egwene.
inadvertently,
So
that
it was
wasn't her
like
plan at all.
inadvertently there was a double play that worked together, but not so that they couldn't channel and
The Dark One's
they
not gonna
couldn't
pay
do
that.
stuff. She's just like, just as I said, she's just making that dough a little bit thick.
Yeah. So she starts listing off her accomplishments from the War of Power, but the Dark One basically shuts her up and he prompts Shada Haran into action with a pretty cool line, actually. I thought this was rad. Like, all he says when Shada Haran does his thing, all the Dark One says is, "My hand moves." Shada Haran takes his foot off her back and grabs her chin, and she thinks he's going to slit her throat as he advances with a dagger. Even at this moment, she thinks this Madral won't eat a shred of her, and she reaches out for the one power. But shockingly, there is nothing there. Shada Haran forces her mouth open, scrapes her tongue, and nicks her ear. And even before it produces the mind trap, Moghedien knows what the knife with blood and saliva is meant for. The Korsuvra.
Suvra.
As she protests, it scrapes the liquids onto the crystal and the fine metal object. The crystal turns a dull pink, and Shada Haran throws it out over the fiery pit. And it arcs through the air and then stops dead, suspended in the air, at the point where the boar is, where the pattern is at its thinnest. So there's a point above the Lake of Fire, like specifically where that little thing went and sat. Like that specific point is where the boar is, which I thought was just rad. That's so cool. She begs the Dark One for mercy, and he responds with, "You may serve me still." She wails in agony as the mind trap shines brightly and she's overwhelmed by pain and then darkness. Finally, she's aware of being on a pallet and she thinks to herself, "Oh, not again." And then enter Helima coming to free her from the Adam. So this is the dream. So that's the whole dream that's playing over and over and over. And I mean, I didn't elaborate on this, but she is shitting herself basically the whole time and in complete agony and pain, and she is desperate. So to live this over and over again is the worst fate imaginable.
I'm loving it.
Yeah, I can tell. Jody's face, totally indifferent, somewhat self-satisfied. So Moghedien freaks out at the prospect of living through all of that again, but she's awoken by a voice saying, "Wake up, woman." She opens her eyes and finds herself in a room with no doors or windows and no source of light, despite being able to see Shada Haran standing next to her. She immediately prostrates herself and calls the fate Miyakova, which means my owner. Now she knows he's got the mind trap, so he owns her. She considers channeling now, but knows that channeling near your own mind trap is extremely painful, and this close, she might not survive just touching the source. So those things are hectic. Shada Haran hauls her up and commands her to close her eyes until told to open them again. He puts his hand on her chest and he shoves her, and instead of hitting the cell wall, she stumbles at least 10 steps, but she keeps her eyes closed. And then a deep voice tells her she can open them. She finds herself in a wood-paneled room with a tall, dark young man with broad shoulders. She can tell that she's somewhere near Shayol Ghul, not in Tel Aranriad, which is the only other possibility. So she must be sensing something about the space that she's in, that it's not the quote-unquote normal world.
Just to remember, that's also her domain. She
Teleranriad, yes, it is. And she can tell this is not it, but it must be somewhere near Sha'al Ghul because this doesn't feel normal either. She can feel tight bands of kuande disappear from around her chest. And I went and I looked that up, and it means anxiety, stress-induced condition experienced as chest pains. That's an old tongue word translated. The young man asks her if she enjoyed her time in the vacuole. Now, that word sounded familiar to me. That's because that's a thing in our world, a vacuole. In biology, vacuoles are essentially enclosed compartments which are filled with water containing inorganic or organic molecules, including enzymes in solution, though in certain cases they may contain solids which have been engulfed. So it's a little pocket of something. In the Wheel of Time, a vacuole is a bubble in the pattern where time flows differently. They can sometimes be entered and manipulated much like the rest of the world. However, they are really outside the pattern and can sometimes close up or break off and drift away, leaving whatever is inside the vacuole gone forever. Time flows differently in vacuoles, sometimes slower and sometimes much faster, though it's said that researchers had done great experiments in vacuoles during the Age of Legends. An example of a vacuole could be the boar in which the Dark One is held.
Communal
A whole, like a bubble outside of the pattern.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Ooh. I'm sensing there's some gravity in this physics. There's a bit of Einstein's world in this, and a bit of Newton's world.
She's suddenly afraid again because if she was in the vacuole, she could have been in there for minutes or like thousands of years. She thinks like she could be emerging into a world where the Dark One has already taken over and all the other Chosen are like already in positions of power, and she's going to be here at the bottom scraping, for scraps. So she asks how long she's been in there, and Moridin tells her she's been there since the night before last. So like not a lot of time at all. It's very, very recent. So she has a bit of like a sigh of relief. Moghedien does not see herself as a coward, only cautious. Her caution had always served her well, and she had escorted many so-called brave dark friends to Sha'al Ghul to be fitted with mind traps of their own. She's also quite optimistic, considering the circumstances. She'd never heard of anyone ever being freed from a mind trap, but she would find a way. So, like, even here, faced with Moridin, okay, he hasn't pulled out the mind trap yet. She just knows that Haran had one. She thinks this is just some young dark friend. She thinks, okay, so Haran has my mind trap. I'm just going to be cautious. I'm going to wait it out, and I'm going to find out. No one has ever escaped, but I'm going to do it, which is pretty amazing if you think about like how hopeless her case really is. But I mean, that hope is about to be crushed. She refers to Moridin as a young friend of the dark, which does sound more respectful than dark friend, which seems more derogatory. Like friend of the dark seems more respectable. She demands to know his name and whether he knows who he's talking to. Her attempt at superiority falling a little flat in her grimy clothes, but Moridin knows exactly who she is, says as much, and introduces himself. And then she gasps, seeing the Sa float across his eyes. The single Sa tells Moghedien that he has channeled a lot of the true power. So like just the one spot goes across his eyes, and even that tells her, fuck, he's channeled the true power a shitload. Only 29 others have ever been granted access to the true power.
She met anyone who has, because how do they know about the Sa at this stage? Which is just one of the thoughts.
Well, if you recall, the Chosen during the War of Power there were like 30 of them. And they had started killing each other off because of their politics and trying to jockey for position. And by the time there were only 13 left, they had all gathered at the boar when Lews Therin went there with 100 companions by pure chance. Like they happened to be there when the 100 companions arrived.
Pure chance. Lews Therin, Talamon's severe nature.
Yes.
They pulled that.
Yes. So during the War of Power, there were, 30 odd Chosen around. And if she's saying, only 29 others had ever been granted access, I'm assuming that correlates loosely to the number of Chosen and that they were using it during the War of Power. She knows about its effects and how intoxicating it is and all that stuff. Because remember, she's thousands of years old, Phil. She knew all the Chosen
but
before they started killing each other off.
But she is a Chosen.
Yes.
So why weren't they granted access to the one power then?
The true power.
The true power.
True power.
They were.
They were. That's what she's saying.
No, her. Why doesn't she? Why was she never granted access?
I don't know that she says that she was never granted access. She says she never uses it. And when she's at the boar, she says if she had to try and channel it here, she would be burnt to a cinder.
She can.
I think she can. And I think the access is only given in limited times, right? Like it's not like, okay, you now have access and then you have access for life. I think it's... I'm pretty sure that, and I mean, this could be first book or like first couple of books, weirdness, that when Ishamal uses it against Rand in the Stone of Tyr, he almost asks for permission to use it. Or, you know, like there's I'll go back and I'll check it for callbacks next time, but there's like a bit of like weirdness around when Ishamal uses it in that fight where he is eventually killed by Rand with Calandor. But yeah, she talks here about potentially channeling it when she's at the boar. 29 others have been given it. She recognizes the signs of it. Now, when you start using it, you don't immediately get the SAR, right? Like you have to use it a lot.
It comes from a long time and a lot to
use.
It
drives you insane and it is irresistible. She thinks to herself, a strong will can still resist the lure of the one power, but nothing can stand against the lure of the true power. And while it does drive you insane, the theory is that Ishamal and Moridin keep using it because they're already insane. So they are not actually afraid of going mad. They're embracing it. And so maybe Moghedien has access to it sometimes, or has been given access to it in the past, but is extremely reluctant to actually even use it. Because we don't read about anyone else using it, not for a while.
And that's, and I mean, also none of the current chosen have the SAR. It's only this from Ishi going to Moridin that all of a sudden it appears. Like, when did he get the time to channel that much to get the SAR?
Well, another thing people think is that the when Shamal is appearing as Baalzamon with the eyes of fire and the mouth of fire, that those are the eventual end points of your eyes going completely black from the SAR, and then it becomes that Ishamal, I mean, Ishamal is using the true power when he appears to Lews Therin in Dragonmount, the prologue of Book 1, 1,000 years before, or 3,000 years before the events of these books. He's already using the true power. So he's been using it for a long time.
It's not showing in his appearance prior, when he appears to Rand. There's no reference to dots floating in his eyes, the blue dots.
No, but there is a lot of reference to like flames in his eyes and stuff, and he's constantly manipulating his own appearance. So,
but in dreams, a lot.
I mean,
see, that's
also when he appears at the Dark Friends social, when he's at the Dark Friends social, that's happening in front of the other Dark Friends. It happens. I mean, when he's fighting Rand in the sky above Falme, that's not in a dream. I'm pretty sure his eyes were on fire and stuff there as well. So people can alter their appearances at will using either the one power or the true power. So this is all moot, right? Like you can't use that as a specific rule to say that he hasn't used it.
I suppose it's also nice to have kept something like, okay, cool, this is this backup. We don't want to use it because once you use it, you're stuffed. It's like eating the big drugs now.
Well, you also don't know what Moridin has been doing up until now. I mean, Rand killed Ishamal at the stone at the end of Book 3. We're now halfway through Book 7. Not that is any real indication of how much time has passed, but there's enough time for if Ishamal was channeling the true power every day, all day from then to now, maybe that's enough. Maybe that is enough for a SAR.
Yeah, I'll allow. But again, as well, Moridin's introduction is who's this new person that has got this. You don't know if you're a first-time reader. We obviously know. So out of that perspective, it's like, wow, this new person that's been channeling this for so long and whatever. So the questions aren't asked, and later you'll do the linking, which I'm kind of disappointed now that I didn't look more for the channeling of the true power in the early stages.
I think we mentioned it. Especially like when he's traveling,
yeah.
because he doesn't do gateways and stuff. Like he just appears out of thin air to loose there. And also in that fight where they're running, through the rooms and he's changing the air to like fire and liquid and all kinds of stuff. Remember Rand is chasing him with Kalandor. I'm pretty sure his channeling in that is also different to Rand's, and I think we spoke about it at the time. So there are little clues. Anyway, back to Moridin and Moghedien. She sees the Tsar and she's sort of like, oh shit, okay, he's used a lot of the true power. But she still plays it cool and tells him to bring her some wine so she can tell him how lucky he is to have been granted access to the true power. And he just laughs and he sets her straight, pulling out from his shirt her mind trap along with another one, which he tucks away. She knows that if he had to crush this fragile object, she would still be aware in her own body, but completely unable to control it. You would control her body completely. So the idea of being conscious in your own body and then having no control over it would be terrifying.
Terrifying, yeah. We spoke about it the other day.
Mm-hmm. So he asks her, do you understand now? And she acknowledges calling him Miyakova, my owner, which is, again, pretty rough. But I was intrigued by this other mind trap.
Yes.
There's a lot of things that need silver pins in this stretch of chapters that's going to be like, cool.
I'll tell you what it is right now.
Throw that pin away.
There's only one other person we read about being trapped in a mind trap in their whole series. That is Sindain, reincarnated Lanfear. So at this point, he might have already been to the Finns, killed Lanfear, instead of freeing her, just kill her and resurrect her, and then mind trapped her. Because Sindain comes back with less power than what Lanfear had. It isn't described how Moghedien knows which one of the mind traps is hers, but she knows immediately. So, I mean, it's not a hard connection to make. Like, part of her soul is in it, right? So, okay, she knows which one is hers. But after she sort of like, grovels to him, he tells her there's no need for that. She doesn't have to call him Miyakova. She can call him Moridin, and he will call her Moghedien. She is still one of the chosen, because who could replace her? And that's almost like even more disconcerting, him being sort of like really casual with her. Like, no, it's fine. You're always waiting for like the hammer to fall for him to turn on a dime and turn her inside out or something, Like, he's just like, no, it's fine. Call me Moridin. It's fine. You're Moghedien. Who could replace you? And he is just so, I don't know, just so relaxed around her, which is pretty imposing. And after that, she finally knows that she is completely owned. And that's how that chapter ends.
What we learn here is that the war between the chosen had never stopped.
No. It's alive and kicking.
And Moridin is now kicked off his game.
Yeah. I like Moridin.
Literally with 2 spare balls. His first serve. Tick, tick. Moridin is in. Moghedien, Lanfear, tick, 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 tick. Let's go.
Player 2 has entered the game. Anything else?
Oh, I think I got a lot. Jody is not interested in this chapter. Look at him. He's like, nah.
I've been trying to get a word in edgewise for like half an hour, but I just gave up. Just let you guys go.
Okay, try now.
No, I got nothing else to say now. It's all been covered.
Okay.
Yeah. I was thinking, okay, now that I have a second, I did remember, that perhaps like balefire? Haven't you said that word in ages? That is how that is the word, right? Yeah. That, like back in the day, the true power was used like that, but too much. Like that's why 29 people had access to it. They were all using it willy-nilly. And now in this age, the Dark One's like, okay, the things were out of hand back then. Now I'm only going to give it access. You got to ask permission before you get to use the true power. Yeah. That's the thought I had.
Good one.
Well, thank you.
All right. Should we then move on?
Sure.
We can.
Billy, you don't have another 30-minute speech prepared?
I feel that I've brought in the fact that the Dark has stepped up to the plate. They
escalation.
They aren't. There's escalation. There's leveling up. Shadar Haran is a great addition. a moving black hole through a cavern of space-time.
Yeah, I dig that black hole
Yeah.
warping of
And the
space
idea
way,
of the
yeah.
boar and the lava lake being on top
is
of
a
each
black
other
hole.
and super thin there, the power that can be sensed there, and the mind trap forming for me was just also like the idea of it. And it's described as like weaving itself in gold. It's
I like as well when you
very,
look up
very, very
over
good.
the lake of fire, it's like a streaking sky. It's like an alien sky up there.
Yeah.
It's literally a gateway to another dimension.
All the reality around that point where the mind trap stopped, all reality around it is just completely warped and bent into whatever the Dark One wants it to be. And he's made it quite cozy for himself.
Absolutely.
All right, then. Let's move on to chapter 26 called The Irrevocable Words. I did it. In your own words, Joe, what happened here?
My own words, oh dear, that's going to be difficult.
I was going to say the word, but it didn't even come out.
Irrevocable. Yes, I did it again. 2 out of 2.
Yay. All right. Well, shall I begin then? Are you guys done trying?
Irrevocable.
Irrevocable.
Irrevocably.
Well, there you go. Well, we're talking about Morgase. Morgase, I just realized after listening to Moritz's summary of the last chapter, is in a similar position to Moghedien, and that she's like living a nightmare at the moment, or has been living a nightmare over and over again, because Eamon Volder and Radam Asunawa have been taking turns with her. They have different techniques between the two of them. Neither of them have been pleasant. Asunawa was just trying to get like information out of her with his knotted ropes and needles, whereas I think Volder has just been straight up sexually assaulting her. I don't know what for, but just to break her will, I imagine, just to show her who's boss. But yeah, she's lying in bed now.
Repeatedly, or I thought it was just once?
No, I got the impression that it was more than once.
Asunawa certainly was only once. It was 1 hour specifically.
Well, maybe she's thinking about just the last hour that she was there. But it's been a while since Pedro and Niall died, but not like even a while. Like maybe, what was it, like 4 days or something?
Well, this whole book is 8 days, so yeah, it's not long.
Yeah, these 4 days have felt very, very long. But whatever, how many days it's been unpleasant for her. So she's like lying in bed. It's the middle of the night. Yeah, this is her thinking about what's been happening. She's lying in the dark. She's disgusted with herself. You know, she's not stoked that she thought that she was braver than this and that her breaking point was further, but turns out it's not, and she's not having any of it with herself. She's in a bad spot. Well, she needs to cut herself some slack, but anyway. She hears movement, and then sees some movement, and she freaks out a bit first in the dark, but it turns out to be Brienne, who, of course, just invites herself in and does whatever the fuck she pleases at all times. And she's there to actually, give her something to drink and like, listen, like, I know you're back now from whatever happened, and just trying to be nice, but of course, Morgase is not having any of it. She is defensive and attacking, and she like slaps the drink out of her hand. But Brienne, kind of takes it. She's being very supportive, really. She knows what's been going on. Linny knows what's been going on. They've been keeping it a secret from the men. The men don't know what's going on, although they might suspect something. This is all from a woman's perspective in this chapter. They just assume the men know nothing, but we never know.
She's being somewhat supportive, but she's also annoyed. She actually gets pissed off with Morgase here in the scene when she slaps her. She's like, okay, well, fine, fuck, snap out of it.
Yeah, but look, as well, she is actually a noble. Like, Morgase doesn't believe that she's a noble that's fallen on hard times, but she was there, actually, at that party where Rand and Tom were. Like, she was one of those women, so... Yep. She has been around, and she doesn't like being treated like this. No. And she knows that Morgase, even though she is a queen technically still, she's in no position to be giving orders. So at this point then, Talonvor enters the room with old Basil Gill and Lamgwin. they come kind of barging in, and this freaks her out, and she grabs Brienne's hand, and Brienne squeezes his back. So there's a little bit of a nice moment there again. Yeah, it's like, all right, it's okay. I'm here. I'll take care of you. Don't freak out. Basil's like, I got some news. Like, Talonvol's like, hey, tell her what you saw, you know? And he's like, well, I saw this bird. And she's like, what? Why are you barging into my room to tell me about birds? And he's like, well, okay, maybe it wasn't a bird, like, but I don't know what to call it because it was fucking huge. It's this thing, massive thing landed on the South Barracks or something on the roof, and there were men on its back climbing off, and he doesn't know how to explain it. And they're like, you know, Linny's there as well, and she's like, why the fuck are you waking us up for about a bird? And like Talonvol's then like, no, listen, you got to see this shit for yourself. I think there's one on another roof over here. So they go to this window to go and look out into the darkness. It's like, okay, you got to see the shit for yourself because we can't. I mean, Talonvol just thinks of it as something. He doesn't even call it a bird, or he doesn't know what to call it. But yeah, they're standing at a window and they're like waiting and looking. It's all dark. They can't see anything. And then all of a sudden, this thing moves on a roof. And Morgase is like, oh, fuck me. She's like, well, this must be Shadow Spawn because like this moves and more people climb off it. And she's like, what the fuck is going on here? Nobody knows what's going on. And then, of course, there's a massive flash of light and big explosions. And Morgase, with her tower training, is like, oh, shit, that's the one power. She can feel it being used. She has obviously no talent for actually using it herself, but she knows when it's being used. And now she's thinking like, shit, I mean, if it's the one power and I can feel it, it's got to be Aes Sedai. So again, everybody's confusing the old Seanchan for the Aes Sedai. And they're like, no, but Talonvol's like, as far as I recall, I don't know if it's Talonvol, I forget now, Basil Gill's like, yeah, but they not, the Aes Sedai can't use it in battle against people. They wouldn't be attacking. Anyway, mass confusion is going on. But shit is going down. Something serious is going down. All right. Talonvol thinks that it's more likely it's an attack maybe by those shaman guys. Like he doesn't know what they're called, but he's referring to the Ashaman. And she's a bit annoyed that he'll believe all those silly rumors that have been floating around. And it's like, well, yeah, he's a smart guy, you know. He knows.
I thought he was butchering the name of the Seanchan.
Yeah, at first as well. But then she says like all those rumors about men who can channel.
Yeah, it's the men that channeled, because in the beginning I was like, who is he talking about? Was it the Seanchan? And then they're like, no, the men that can. I'm like, Ashaman.
Ashaman.
Butchering that really bad.
Yeah, well, they butcher the name of the Seanchan, the Seanchan, like, and everybody's like trying to, like, you know, like saying irrevocable, you know, and everybody's butchering the words. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of shit going on outside. There's attacks, then they start hearing the clashing of swords and on steel and whatnot. Wait, let me just get my spot again. I'm like Willie now. Yes, so then they're standing by the window and of course now's the time, all right? So now Talonvol thinks like, listen, there's shit going down. Maybe this is a great opportunity to sneak out. This is the way to escape now. During this confusion, we can use it. And at that moment, like a crossbow bolt almost takes her freaking head off. There's a lot of arrows being shot at women in these chapters, but it like chips a stone off the wall and thuds into like the bedpost. And he's like, whoa, okay, everybody away from the window now. It's time to hide away. But I think, okay, like now, like people are shooting arrow bolts. We're not going to get out of here anytime soon. So basically, they just hang out in the room and wait. She's like, listen, we're not going anywhere. Everybody sit down, take a chill pill. And all together, they know where they are, where everyone is, and they're sitting there. Eventually, as the sun rises and everything starts calming down, you can hear the battle dying down outside and the sun's coming up. There's marching soldiers outside the door and banging on the door and open up, and it's the Seanchan. So we get to see them first. But of course, to them, it's like, who the fuck are these guys? Again, another hook-nosed dude. There's a lot of hook noses as well. Never trust anybody in these books that has a hook nose, apparently. Dark dude with his black and gold armor and his insect helmet under his arm, and everybody's like, whoa, what is... And he's slurring, you know, drawling accent. And he's like, you are Morgase, Queen of Andor, come with me. You know, and she's like, and she tries to like, all the dudes, Talonvol, I mean, like, stand up and put themselves in between. He's like, no, you come with me by yourself. And she's like, yes, I'll allow that. I will go with you, you know, trying to remain queenly and not be ordered about. So anyway, they go outside. well, she goes outside with them, and they start taking her on the walk, and she realizes on this walk that they're going to Perrin Denial's old study, which she remembers used to be quite a pleasant walk, but since Velda took over, bad juju again, not bad feelings, and she doesn't like it. She starts feeling sick already. But then she also sees not only the Seanchan shoulders, that's difficult to say.
There we go.
Seanchan soldiers. There you go. Yeah. But she also sees the boners, the terror boners. She's like, what? What are these guys doing there? I know these guys. Like, I haven't been there in a long time, but I'm 100% sure that these are not the same people. Like, these are our land people, you know. She doesn't recognize the Seanchan. She thinks about, like, she doesn't recognize the armor. She doesn't recognize the accents or anything, and she knows every land, you know, every.
She knows a boner when she sees one.
Yeah, she knows a boner when she sees one. So, but she knows these guys anyway. So off they go, and she is taken to the office, the head office. She's going to the principal's office.
Yeah.
And she is met by our good old buddy, the High Lady Suroth. Is this the first time we've actually seen her since
the Bay of
Falmer?
Cantorin?
Yes, we had that that was in the prologue, wasn't it?
That long prologue for Shadow Rising?
Yeah. Somewhere around
That's 700 pages long or something.
yeah.
It's
Could
like
be its
70.
own book.
Yeah.
Yeah, just feels like it. So anyway, she's back. And she greets her, and she's like, yes, Queen Morgase, how nice of you to have you here. And what ensues from now on is a massive power play by Suroth just to scare the living shit out of Morgase. And it works when eventually Morgase realizes what's going on. She talks about Damane and Marath Damane and all kinds of things. She tells Morgase that the Seanchan have taken over Tarabon, and they're going to do the same thing with Amadicia. Morgase is like, listen, you know, I know all about Tarabon, and that was a divided nation. Maybe it was easy to take over that land, but people are going to fight back. We're going to, you know, unite against you and come and take back Amadicia. We'll support them and all of that stuff, you know. So Morgase is like standing her ground because she is a queen, after all. And there's also some other people in there as well in the room. She's got her. How do you pronounce these people? The dancers.
The Dakoval?
Dakoval. Dakoval. Yes, those people as well. And we learn during this whole thing that one of the Dakoval that she calls up to dance is actually the former Panok of Tarabon, is Amathera, who's now just called Thera. And talking and during this whole time, like Suroth is also telling her, like, it's nice to own pretty things, and Morgase is thinking, as I thought stuck with me as well, is how Morgase thinks, like, how weird, you can't own people. Like the concept of these Randlanders, like, of owning another human being is so foreign to them that the Seanchan, like, at first they don't even get angry, they don't even disgust it, they're just confused as to around the concept of slavery, which I thought was very cool.
Yeah.
And and so it turns out that one of these dancers that she's making dance around, she's like, oh, she's new, we've just recently owned her, she used to be, you know, the Panok of Tarabon. And then like, and then we meet another, they're talking about the Damane as well. They've got some Damane over there, and one of them is Pura, who used to be a yellow, what was her name? Did you not write it down? I didn't write it down either.
I did.
Because this is
Rima Gelfrey.
That's the one, Rima. So yeah, Rima, who disappeared. She was also captured there in Toman Head. Yeah, right back in the day when Egwene was captured. We actually saw her there in those chapters, didn't we? Yeah.
They mention her and her being captured.
We didn't see her. We mentioned her.
Bail Domin
hear about
witnessed Shireen Caminel be captured, and when she was captured, she called out to Rima to help her. Rima or Rima? But I'm pretty sure you run into Pura the Damane in the kennels or the between the other Damane when Egwene is there.
Yeah. Well, here she is again, and she is thoroughly and cowed. Like there's nothing left of her. Yeah. She's completely broken. And her hair is glistening, like brushed so nicely, and they're stroking her head, and she looks so grateful and appreciative that she's being noticed and that she's done a good job and everything. Like,
Pretty rough reading, eh?
Just, oh, dude. Yeah, and like Morgase is like, no ways. And she's like, because she can also sense that people can channel, and she can sense that these women with the lightning bolts can channel, and then she realizes that used to be an Aes Sedai. And now she's really starting like this facade that she's got on, this tough guy facade is starting to crack. Also, there's a Lopar lying on the ground. She thought it was like a pile of rugs or something, but then it yawned and moved, and she was like, oh dear Lord, what the fuck is going on here? So yeah, complete power play by Suroth, bringing her in there by herself, and like Suroth as well saying like, listen, we have this rule about women who can channel, like you're Marath Damane basically, but we'll let this one slide since you are the Queen of Andor, but what we need from you is to hand over Andor to us. I mean, that's why we'll let everybody, you guys can rule under us, it'll be fine, just swear your oaths, but we need you for that. And look at us, like we've got the money, we've got these crazy Lopars, we've got everything, like you can't stand against us, basically. So yeah, that's basically what happens in that part of the chapter, and then she is released to go. There's a little scene where the guy that brought her in is chastised and then told to go get punishment, but she immediately sees through that right in the beginning as this whole thing has been set up to intimidate her, and it plays out as I described now.
Good cop, bad
so she
cop.
returns back to good cop, bad cop, yes, but it's pretty fucking blatant. They're not very good at it, apparently.
No.
They didn't learn from the Cairhien. Those guys would show you how to do it. So anyway, after this, like Morgase is fucking shaken to the core after seeing all of this shit and hearing everything that Suroth had told her. She gets escorted back to her rooms now by the same Seanchan officer, and she sees some of the Terraboners as well along the way. Two of them are placed outside her room to guard her, and when she comes back to her rooms, she's like, oh shit, like she's having this little internal discussion with herself about what can she do to prevent this, like so she can either help the Seanchan take over her own country, or perhaps she could just off herself, and just jump out the window, basically. There's a whole long scene. It's a lot more in-depth and subtle in the books, but it's basically down to those. Like, she's going to end herself. That's not the best idea she's got, but it's not... she doesn't really have very many ideas left, very many options open to her.
No.
The other option that is open to her, though, is to say the irrevocable words, which is her abdicating the throne and passing it on to Elayne. So in this chapter, Elayne becomes Queen of Andor, even though she doesn't know it, and no one else in the world knows it. Like, I get that she has these words, and it's a ritual for the Queen of Andor to say so, but really these words should have witnesses. Otherwise, they don't mean anything to me, at least. No. But apparently it means enough. So, no witnesses, nobody heard her. I mean, Linny and Brienne are in the room as well when she comes back, but she says it so like softly that none of them hear it. The men, while she was gone, have also disappeared. They've gone to go and look for, I don't know, a way out. And she abdicates the throne at this point. When Linny and Brienne at this point also realize what she was thinking about, they get really, really upset. Linny grabs her by the arm and pulls her back from the window, and she's like, what the fuck are you doing? Because they realize that she's standing at the window and things are not going well. So Linny is pissed off that Morgase has even considered ending her own life. And Brienne is pissed off because of the consequences to herself. Mm-hmm. Her anger comes from the fact, like, Liz, what did you think would happen, like, after you killed yourself and the Seanchan find out? They would hang us. They would kill us. They would think we killed you, or, and also, my big man,
Lamgwin.
What's Lamgwin? They would kill Lamgwin, and she's not going to stand for that. And like, no, she's got plans with this man in their future. Don't come and fuck up my plans because you're too much of a coward. And she lays into her, like, really, like, you're a coward and you're a yellow belly and blah, 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 blah. So yeah, both Linny and Brienne are on the same page, but Linny eventually freaks out at Brienne because she's like, "You're taking it too far now. Shut your mouth." And this is the first time that I think Morgase has seen Linny lose her shit and actually get angry and shout. It's definitely the first time we've seen it. But yeah, tensions are fucking high. And at that point is when the door opens again and the men return and everything just shuts down because they, of course, don't want to freak out Talonville too much. There's a point as the men come in because Linny had grabbed Morgase by the arm, and as soon as the men come in, she starts studying the material, like, oh, maybe she should do a little stitching or something, just and they have returned with nothing to see. Yeah, moving along, gentlemen. But they have returned with an extra gentleman, a certain Bulwer. Yeah, Sebin's back, everybody. He, of course, takes one look at the situation in the room and knows exactly that you cut the tension with a knife in the room. And he's like, something is up here. And she's like, yeah, surprised to see him because she assumed that he was dead. She was aware that... Valda, sorry, I was going to say Asinawa. Valda had said, there's both Bulwer and not Valda and everybody. So had threatened to kick him over the walls if he had ever seen him again. So he had disappeared. But meanwhile, this entire time, he had been laying low, making plans to escape. And his plan had always included Morgase, because he thought it would be, in his own words, imprudent to leave her in the hands of the White Cloaks. So he had been formalizing a plan to escape. But now that the Seanchan have arrived and taken over, it's actually much, much easier because apparently you can just say some silly oath and then you can do what you want. So he's already organized, a way to get out. He's got wagons. He's told them he's going to go buy some wine and he's allowed to leave because he swore the oath, and he's allowed to take up to 10 other people with him who have also sworn the oath.
There we go.
So I've got a pass. We can leave. And Morgase is like, this can't be. This can't be true. Like, no one takes over like an invading army and they let people leave and go ahead and warn everybody else. But he says, yeah, he brought that up. But they were like, cool, go tell everyone we're here. Like, we're happy with it. Let them know that their true masters have arrived. They are not afraid.
No.
Yeah, so Bull was like, listen, you guys have got to come with me. We can go, like, tonight, right now. We can get on those wagons and just get the fuck out of town. So she's like, well, she's considering it. She's afraid of it. But Talonville is like already on board. He just grabs her in a very unsubject-like way and tells her, we are going. Like, I'm not even having this conversation with you. This is our chance, and we are taking it. We are heading out. So Morgase accepts the offer, and off they go. So Borla gets them outside of the Fortress of the Light, and she only really starts to believe that they're free when they're outside the borders of Amador already. Like, she's very conservative with her hopes. But yep, there it is. And then just left to wonder, like, what is she going to do now? Like, she's not the queen, she's not a captive. She's basically a free agent at this point. She's out in the world, and she's just wondering what life has in store for her now. And oh my, there are some things in store for you, woman. Yeah, new adventure. You go, girl. Go be you.
Are they heading in the direction of Gildan?
Yes, because they are heading.
Guess who else is going to Gildan?
No need to guess. I'll tell you in the next chapter. But yeah, heading around, and that's the end of this chapter. So basically, Seanchan attack. All kinds of shit happens. She gets intimidated. We see Suroth again. We see a Lopar. I know how much Willie loves those guys. And and they escape. A lot happens in this chapter. I listened to this last night on the audiobook. It's an hour long, this chapter, in an audiobook.
Very, very, very long chapter. That could have been a bit shorter. But I
100% agree.
I suppose. There's a lot of info in there. I loved Suroth coming out and back in again.
You love the Dark Friend. Surprise,
weird.
Surprise.
It's so
I know. It's just her droll, her Lopars, her property, and just brings a whole different vibe.
Making the Panok dance a little dance. It's usually danced by a group, but you dance by yourself.
I like how Morgase is picking up on all these ploys. Like, she knows that act between the officer and Suroth was just an act, and then she's like, Thera. Why does she keep saying Thera's name? She's obviously trying to draw my attention to her. I should look at her. And like, even though Morgase had never actually met Amathera, she's read enough descriptions of her to like put 2 and 2 together.
Because Amathera's got a very unique look. Like she's got
that pouty mouth and
there's quite unique features about her. But she's like, okay, I can put 1 and 1 together, and that tracks.
Yeah. This whole chapter to me, especially in the beginning, before the Seanchan actually like opened her door to her chambers, like I got almost like a winter night sense of like adventure. Like Talonvor comes in, it's dark, like all the lights are down in the thing. He's standing by the window. He's like standing off to the side, looking out through the window in the moonlight. You can barely see something. He's like, something is happening, and he she says something about his voice, like she's never heard him sound like this before. Like even unshakable Talonvor is like, he's anxious. Something is afoot. And then you see the silhouette of the Raken on the North Barracks or whatever it is. And it's like, fuck, okay, what's happening? And then they're all getting ready. And then by the end of the thing, you're like, oh man, they have to escape this terrible situation. And they just walk out the front door. It's just like, escape, check, done. Okay.
It was a bit of a anticlimax in the sense of a battle. I mean, for the Seanchan to take over, especially this White Cloak territory. I mean, I want to see some blood spilled.
But at the beginning, Valda takes all the men out. Like they've all left the Fortress of the Light. That's why Valda's not around anymore. So it is just like
Asunawa as well. They're all gone. They all left.
There must still be some manning the barracks.
Oh yeah, there's a garrison.
You know, the guys that aren't sharp enough to move with the army. It's the
all the new recruits.
Also, these are the guys who, even the best of them, what are they going to do against channelers, right? So here come Damane and basically dragons that don't breathe fire, but like flying beasts and like hardcore troops with people that do magic. What are these? The guys that didn't crack the nod for the march. What are they going to do?
But they could have like showed like how they were ripped apart and by the Damane, like really showing their power. Like, this is White Cloaks. It's a golden opportunity to get balance for what was done to Morgase. Like, you know, a little bit of retribution.
Billy wants vengeance. He wants to see the bloody violence.
But you're reading this from Morgase's point of view. And she doesn't know anything about the Seanchan. So for her, like, it all has to be mysterious. Like, there's commotion outside, flashing lights. That's all you see. The stray crossbow bolt, like, I think it's quite purposefully held away from Morgase and by extension the reader, because she's supposed to be unsure and uncertain of what is going on.
I mean,
don't worry, you'll get to see it in the TV show.
Confused if she sees like a white cloak that she's seen there over the days. He used to be always like nice, like nod at her while sweeping the floor, because he's always had to do diminutive work. And then him running because he had a natural hobble and a limp, and he's like running down the hallway and it just explodes like. And all his
I think if that had to happen to Asunawa or Valda or a child Bayar or someone that had like actively been terrible to her, it would have had more effect. But I mean, there are White Cloaks that we are supposed to like. Pedro Nile was likable. Galad is a White Cloak. Trom, Galad's buddy, who you meet in the inn. Like just getting White Cloaks for me, I should say. Maybe Willie, your bloodlust is higher than mine, but for me, just seeing White Cloaks ripped apart is not something that I was like, oh man, this chapter really could have used more White Cloak blood mist.
Hey, everything we've read about the Seanchan up to here has always been pretty rough. This is just, it's like a cool. We just landed some birds on your tower walls, and now we got it. Like cool.
Dragon birds,
swear oats.
I disagree. Like what the Seanchan have been doing is they have been ruthless in their collaring of channelers and that sort of stuff, but they're not violent for the sake of violence. If anything, everyone, even in Falme, were shocked by how much freedom they were given. They just like they walk in,
you are right,
stamp down their authority. They're not violent for the sake of violence. They're just coming in and say. They just like they topple the person on top. They're not in the streets killing civilians, and they just come in, cut off the head of the snake, take over. Okay, everybody, if you swear oaths, you're fine. Business as usual.
Hey, homeless people, do you want houses? Hungry people, do you want some food?
Yes.
Criminals, you're in jail. They come and sort shit out. not condoning the slavery.
They're not barbarians.
No.
No.
But,
No, they
life for the average
civilized
person actually
slave
gets
keepers.
better. Especially in Terrebonne. I suppose Terrebonne was a shithole to begin with, and they actually made things better for the average people there. I don't think that would be the case for like the white cloaks for Amadicia. On the other hand, this is bad.
Maybe everyone that's not a white cloak is not having a great time either. Maybe the rest of
I don't know.
Amadicia is in need of some uplift.
Yeah, but I think the white cloaks also keep like a well-governed society. You know?
They probably do. A well-policed one anyway.
Policed, yeah, that's a different
Overly
different story.
policed state.
So so the white cloaks have also gone after Massima, so they're going to Cairhien.
Is that why
And
they left?
so
I
is
can't
Perrin.
remember why they left.
Yes, to go deal with the prophet.
Right.
So they're heading there. Morgase is heading there. Perrin's heading there. There's going to be Perrin and the white cloaks.
We'll get to it, but Perrin and like a bunch of other people are going there.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to this one. Joe, it does say that Morgase referred to it as one endless hour with Asanawa.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe the endless word kind of stuck in my brain and the hour
Maybe.
didn't.
Well, it's with him and his, what was it, these pincers and tweezers or whatever
And needles
maniacal
and
tools
stuff,
of torture, needles he chose to use for an hour. An hour can be a long time if someone's sticking needles under your toenails. It's not fun.
No, it is endless.
Yes.
Did you guys know what the word Jakes meant? When they asked Basil, explain what you saw, and he's like, I saw it on my way to the, and then Morgase fills in the blanks. He was going to say on his way to the Jakes, but he can't say it. Yeah, it's the toilet. He didn't want to say toilet in front of Morgase. Like he's got so much respect for the queen.
Yeah.
I thought maybe he was going gambling or drinking or
I
something.
also
when he
thought
didn't wanna-
gambling, and then I looked it up. And I was like, oh no, just the toilet. Of course, Basil.
just gonna
I'm
have
sorry,
a dump.
Basil, for doubting you. You're not a gambler.
Yeah, sorry. He's not. That's not him. That's not his style.
Well, it feels like a lifetime ago. I toured and saw some castles in Europe. And in France, particularly, those old manor houses. Their toilet was like a doorway outside the tower, and then just walk, and then there was just a room that you'd be pooing in a hole that would fall down to the bottom where the peasants would sweep it up. That was the the like of it back then. I assume. I wonder if it's the same in Randland. It's like I was walking on the tower side to go have a shit that someone's going to pick up later. Then I saw a great big bat and I shat in my pants.
What else? Vil, I mean, I've got a couple more things. Did you have anything you wanted to say about this chapter?
No, I mean it's the Morgase's treatment. I feel like it's laid in there, but not a lot of focus on it. Obviously, she's been going through a harrowing couple of days, call it 2 days or whatever, since the passing of Pedronal. She's not in a good place.
No.
And I've even thought to the point, like, she's saying that she is willing to end her life. She is relinquishing her throne. Like, she is, if you don't know any of the story and you take all about it, you hear about a woman that's been endured the torture of one man and being raped, whether it is repeatedly or a single occasion, by another man who's supposed to be keeping her safe. And these are the people of the light, the good people that's doing this to her. She doesn't see a way out other than, you know what, just end me now. Like,
this is after the
there's
whole
a lot
Gabriel situation.
there's a lot of fucking shit that this woman is carrying with her.
She's
Like,
seen a lot, yeah.
don't even think like she's melodramatic or just a bit melancholy or whatever. I mean, she's endeared a fuck ton.
No.
It's and I think we glance kind of over it with it's nice with action. We're expecting some action in that, but it was quite a cock chapter to sum it up.
Yeah, and I don't think we breezed past. I think we were talking about this event in episodes before,
Previous
knowing that
already,
it was
like
coming.
there was a build up
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah. When Lenny comes charging into the room, when the men were in there, she starts saying like, "How dare you interrupt my
child?"
Is that the word she was going to use?
That's what I thought she was going to use.
Yeah. So it goes to show you like what Lenny thinks of Morgase.
Witness.
They pass a Suldam on the way to Suroth's audience, and the soldier calls her Der Suldam, which is a higher ranking Suldam. They often have more than one Damane, and they are also the Suldam that train other Suldam. So if you see someone called Der Suldam, that's a higher rank than just plain Suldam. What else? We spoke about Pura. I learnt another word. Dudgeon. You know what that meant?
Dudgeon?
Dudgeon.
I don't recall seeing that word.
A feeling of offense or deep resentment. It's when I think Morgase is thinking about if a servant in Andor had to be asked to wear what the Dakoval are wearing, the sort of scandalous see-through clothing, they would walk off in a dudgeon.
In a huff.
Else? Morgase is like putting on a pretty brave show with Suroth, right? Like she knows they are in deep shit here. But then she offers her the advice, quote unquote advice, like maybe you should just pack up your stuff before you are crushed. Like those are some pretty fighting words from someone in her position at this moment in time. And Suroth just laughs it off, but just shows you Morgase's backbone.
Yeah, that interaction with Suroth as well. There were lots of little things going on there that I didn't quote, but like calling her by her name.
Yeah.
Big no-no, apparently. Yeah.
She also says something along the lines of the reason I came here, or like I entertained this audience, like making it sound like she came to Suroth willingly, which was obviously not the case. Like lots of those little moves. She is very, very sharp. But Suroth picks up on them as well, and is sort of like smiling and grinning through it. I'm surprised that Suroth is showing her this much sort of respect. I mean, she's Seanchan and a dark friend.
And she's talking to a channeler.
Yes.
A young woman who could touch them. Do a damane, basically, like a dog. Yeah. But I think it's just practicality. Like she's also practical. Like if I can get her to swear over her kingdom right now.
Yeah.
Huge, saving of resources. And that would be ideal.
Mm-hmm. All right. Should we move along?
Yes, indeed.
Let's then move to chapter 27 called To Be Alone. You alone can give us the summary, Joe.
Thank you. I doubt that I'll get through this chapter alone without interjections. But one can hope. We are with old Perrin. And finally, it has happened. What we have been talking about for what appears years. The fight between old Rand and old Perrin. The fake fight that was almost a real fight. But was it sort of a real fight? Who knows? So Perrin this is like post explosion. Perrin is walking through the halls. He's in the Sun Palace still. He's now been ordered out of Cairhien by Rand. And he's thinking back about what happened. All right, and it's all happened off page, but through his memories, we get the idea that he was in the hall, like in the hall with all the other nobles, arguing with Rand and questioning basically Rand's treatment of the Aes Sedai. Like you gave them over to the wise ones. You don't know if they're sleeping on silk or if they're being beaten with switches. You're not the creator. Having their throats slit. Okay, I toned it down in my memories. Having their throats slit. You are not the creator. And Rand freaking out and going like, I am the Dragon Reborn and I'll do what I want. And it's time that you left. I want you out of Cairhien. I want you out of my life. I want you to leave now. And using the one power to pick him up and throw him against the wall. And now Perrin's walking, feeling his ribs going like, I think he actually, cracked one of my ribs. And there was a point there where Rand turned around and looked at him and said, I am the Dragon Reborn, that Perrin was 100% certain that Rand was going to kill him there and then. And and he was talking about like all the nobles in the room as well, averting their eyes, like except for Dobrain, who was looking at him and shaking his head, just going, this is not right. Like, Like I see,
Yeah.
Doreen's got some balls.
He does.
Like he knows what's right and what's wrong, and he's a cool guy. I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but my memories of him from previous reads is like I didn't like the guy. But
Really?
I have some respect for him. Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe I just lumped him in
He's
with
a
all the
noble.
other nobles who are all
Yeah.
assholes.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
a noble, you know. So now that I've like separated him a bit, like he's a good guy.
He's
I
a
like
good
him.
dude, yeah.
Yeah, he could stay. So yeah, Perrin's on his way out. He's leaving. He's packing up and he's skedoodling. He comes around the corner where one of the hallways, and he literally bumps right into Loyal. Loyal has also been sent on a mission. He's not coming with. He's with Carlden, another guy who can channel, one of the Usherman. But the Usherman in disguise, he's now wearing a blue color coat instead of a black coat.
In civvies.
So no one knows who he is. He's in civvies, yeah. So Loyal has been sent with this dude to go and secure all the waygates. He's on his little waygate mission that they've been talking about forever. He's finally leaving for it too. So everybody's like now separated. Like, we've been talking about this as well. Like everyone's just sitting around in palaces for like 3 books. Like go and fucking do something now. And they are. So everybody's on the move, finally. So Loyal... Oh, there we go. What?
Finally, it's only been 4 days of this book.
No. I'm talking about
Two Mice Wells.
in the amount of pages that I've read.
Yes.
Like even in Do My's Wells, like he didn't leave on purpose. Rand wasn't planning on going anywhere. So still, you know, and Rand's still not going anywhere. It's the other guys that are going. But yeah, Rand is in a bad place as well. He also took it a bit far, I think. Loyal tells him that tells Perrin that he refused to even see Min. He wouldn't let Min come inside. He had to lie to her, and of course she didn't buy it. Oh, Rand's not in. It was his excuse. It's totally in. He's always in. But yeah, and that's where the title comes from, To Be Alone, because that's the last thing Rand said to Loyal, is like, to be alone is a terrible thing, you know, like, so of course Loyal's worried about him because he's sending away all his friends, and he's also concerned that he won't be able to finish his book. How can he finish his book if he's not here with the actual Dragon Reborn? But alas, he has shit to do, so he's been ordered out and off he goes. So Perrin heads down to the stables where, again, everyone runs out in fear because everyone now, the whole city knows that the Dragon Reborn had a fit with his friend Perrin, and to steer clear. You don't want to be caught up in that shit.
It worked.
Yeah, totally. Everyone's averting their eyes. So yeah, he gets old Stepper saddled, and they head out of the city, where he meets up with Fail and Aram and some 2 Rivers men who are waiting for him. There are also some Aiel, and there are 2 Usherman. Grady and Neild are coming with. It's helpful. These Usherman who can open gateways where you can instantaneously go places. So yeah, like when he first left, I thought he was being kicked out, and I didn't remember, like you said, Moritz, earlier, like with a whole bunch of people. I didn't realize it was this many people that he's going with. There's
He's
thousands.
leaving with an army. He's leaving with
he's
an
got his
army.
own
He's
army,
got Aes Sedai. He's got. Is there wise ones? There's
He's got
wise
6
ones.
wise
Wise
ones.
ones.
He's got 6
Six
wise
wise
ones,
ones,
2
2
Aes
Aes
Sedai,
Sedai.
2 Usherman, all the 2 Rivers men, Elayne and her winged guards. So like that's another like what,
My inner
900
gods, and that's the biggest
soldiers.
gripe at the moment.
Yeah. So yeah, he's got a whole bunch of shit. I've got a list of people he's going with there.
And the Chafail.
Yes.
Ah, yeah, them too.
Yeah.
Fail's
Yeah, them
hang-alongs.
too.
Bane and Chiad, Gaul.
Gaul's not stoked either, but we'll get to that. So yeah, he's got a whole bunch of people waiting for him in this clearing to the north, where they're going to have a little traveling session. He's talking about Grady and Neild. They're also not stoked about, like, no one. This is not a unified army at this point. Everybody's got some beef with somebody else in this group. Grady and Neild, for example, are like, do we have to bring these women with? And they're referring to the 2 Aes Sedai, and also by extension the wise ones that are leading them. So they're bringing along Seanchan Trigon, pronouncing it like that. I just had a look at them, who these people were, because it's very confusing. She's a green, very strong in the power actually, and uncharacteristic for many greens. She's also very good at healing. Some notes. And Masuri Sokawa, who is a brown, very strong in the power as well, not quite as strong as Seanchan, and she's a Darkhound expert. Now, I wonder if this is going to come up later on.
Interesting.
Bring along a Darkhound expert. So yeah, whole bunch of people there as well. There, Nynaeve opens a gateway, and they start. Joe Grady tries to step through, but of course, the maidens push him out of the way because they're just used to going through gateways first now. That's their thing. Don't fucking don't tread on me. And they jump through the gateway and off they run. Then it's Perrin and Fail and Aram go through. Fail is there as well. We forgot to mention her, but like, you know, she is very cautious around Perrin when discussing these Cairhien Aiel wannabe people. She's like, yes, I thought I better take them with so they don't get into trouble. And like Perrin smells caution on her voice because she knows like he is not a fan of this. But later on, she has different sense. Then the Two Rivers men go through, then the Aes Sedai go through, then there's remounts, there's supply carts, and there's an explanation about why there's carts and not wagons because they can't fit. And I mean, there's fucking tons of people and support, like not only the people that are going through, not just the Aiel and everybody else, but all the support for them and the resources and the food and the farriers and the, what are the other people called that are Fletchers. That make the Fletchers? Yeah, there you go. A whole bunch of dudes coming through. So yeah, like literally thousands and thousands of people. It takes a good part of the morning to get everybody out through the gateway. There's a point while all of this is happening that Gaul walks up to Perrin and makes a comment about women. And the Perrin immediately thinks that he's like, he has to defend Fail, and he's like, oh no, wait, he's not talking about this. He's talking about
his woman problem.
Bane and Chayad. Yeah. Yes, because he's been looking forward to getting those two alone. Now they're with a whole bunch of other maidens. Grady's there too, and he's like, he's talking about his wife and how her knee hurts, and then Perrin's like, what? How do you know her knee hurts? Turns out they have figured out like a type of water bond that the Asherman have now figured out, and that some of the men whose wives did not leave them when they found out they could channel have now all bonded their wives so that they can have like a keep an eye on them kind of a thing and know that they're safe and everything. So it's like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, I like Grady. He's a cool old weathered faced man. You know, even Perrin is comfortable around him when he looks at his face. He seems like a grandfatherly type.
He's not that old, is he?
It's a weathered face, which gives him a look of age.
He's an older man, Grady.
Looks like a farmer.
He's unoffensive.
It was his wife that was sort of giving Rand the death stare in that chapter where they were establishing the farm.
Yeah.
He's one of the first.
I think all those are wives.
He is one of the first, and in this case, he's also one of the not accepted as anointed. I don't know, with the soldier and
dedicated.
Yeah,
dedicated.
He's a dedicated. Yeah, and Nynaeve is still a soldier, but this doesn't mean anything to me anymore because I know that Taim is only giving promotions to guys he likes. So these guys they're pretty strong. They can open a gateway. Totally. Nynaeve opens a gateway for everybody by himself. So,
but weren't this the first raising? Like when Rand came to the farm and then he raised Taim, and then Taim was already then starting to like people handing out. Like Grady was one of the first that got.
But that's Jody's point. Like even some of the first guys are not being raised as fast as some of Taim's cronies.
His cronies.
There's a couple of guys that already have the dragon pins and stuff that are loyal.
Yeah,
to Taim.
nepotism runs deep. They're dark friends. They're related.
They're all brothers. That's what it's.
They're all brothers of the dark.
All right. So Perrin at this point, when he sees that almost everyone is through, and kind of wishes that Nynaeve would just close the gateway now before the next group of people come through, because it's good old Elayne and her wing guards, and they come through, and he doesn't need the shit in his life. And of course, Elayne then, with her wing guards and all the things, walks out. And even though they're in a pretty sparse area with lots of trees as well to block them, she puts herself within eyeball staring view of Fael so that they can literally just stare at each other this whole time. And of course, Perrin's just like, oh, fuck. Burn you, Rand, that I have to deal with this shit now. Mm-hmm. So he has to go up onto the slight rise. He wants to give everybody a speech quickly. He gets some looks from some Aes Sedai and some wise ones, and from Fael, who don't agree that he needs to tell everybody everything. Mm-hmm. They still, she's trying to get him like, you're a lord, you don't need to tell your subjects what's going on every step of the way. But he's an old country bumpkin in his heart, so he wants to let everybody know what exactly is going on, why they're all here. So he gets up there and he gives his little speech to everybody, tells them that, okay, this is what's happening. I've been banished. As far as everyone knows, I'm banished. Elayne here is on her way home. And the rest of you have just simply disappeared. Like, I thought that was a bit weird as well. Like, if you've left any friends or family behind, they have no idea what happened to you. We're actually in Gildan at the moment, or Gildan, or however you want to pronounce it. And everybody's like, ooh, that's wow, surprise. Like, yeah, we walk through a gateway, so a lot of distance has been made. And that they have 2 tasks that they need to accomplish. Like, Perrin's really laying it out for everybody. Like, even the wagon drivers know what's going on, down to the minute detail. First, of course, since we're in Gildan now, we have to go to the Queen, Aleandre, and convince her that we're not invading, even though we have entered her land as an army without permission. Mm-hmm. Technically, we are invaders, but we need to dissuade her of that. And secondly, we're here to find Masema, the old prophet of the dragon, and tell him, in no short order, to calm the fuck down, stop killing people who won't follow Rand. Like, the Dragon Reborn's not going to take this. Everybody's like, yeah, we'll get this fucker. He's going to go down. Masema, boo. Perrin's just like hoping that everything gets done quickly and smoothly, which we know is a portent for things that are going to go sideways very, very fast. But more than anything else that he wishes for is that he can put some distance between himself, Fael, and Elayne, because those 2 are going to be a thing. And this was a short chapter, and that's basically everything that's happened.
Yeah.
Pieces on the chessboard has moved.
I felt like at the beginning of the chapter, after the name of the chapter, what is it, To Be Alone, and Perrin thinking about his like altercation with Rand and everything, I had the same thought, Joe. I was like, oh, it's all about Perrin being alone and being sent away. And that's why I laughed when he rocked up and there was just like names and names and names and names of groups and groups of people. I was like, oh, wait, no, he's not alone. Rand's alone. Rand says to Loyal, he is purposefully sending all his friends away. I'm going to send all my friends away, and being alone is terrible.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So he knows what
that's
he's doing.
That's why Loyal's all worried about him. Yeah. Shame.
I hope that Perrin is putting on a bit of a show about in their fight when he says to Rand, you don't know if they're sleeping in silk sheets or having their throats slit. Because...
No, that was Perrin being for real.
Let me finish my train of thought. Like, I started there thinking like, I mean, Perrin, don't you know the Aiel? And then I realized like, wait a minute. He does know Bane and Chayad and Gaul. And yeah, maybe them slitting some Aes Sedai throats is not that beyond reason. Because Perrin never went to the Waste, right? Like he's never been ingrained in the Aiel culture or anything like that. He can't just assume that they are good. But he has also spent a lot of time with Gaul and Bane and Chayad. So yes, the Aiel can be violent, but he must know about like their sense of honor and Ji'ito and that sort of thing.
Counter rebuttal.
Double
Battle
negative.
societies do not speak about Wise One business. So they're not going to incorporate that level of their culture because Perrin isn't part of it. And Perrin has on occasion asked and didn't get quite explanations. And when he did, he never understood it. He said like, I don't understand this.
That I think is the key. I don't think that Perrin hasn't been presented with enough evidence to make his own conclusions. Perrin just doesn't understand it.
I think that is more so, but his point of wanting to protect the woman, I think, is upmost in foreground. And Rand has had the experience of being in the box, and he doesn't care how they get treated, and he doesn't expect Perrin to tell him how he's gonna treat them. And Perrin does have really things broken ribs, like we mentioned, after being thrown across the floor with the one power, and having a little bit of a boxing match with the dragon.
That's after Perrin made that comment. Like Perrin's comments about the Aes Sedai and the Wise Ones is what, when he says you're not the creator, that's what triggers Rand to go off. Idara is one of the Wise Ones that you read about here. She features quite prominently, so try and remember her. She's actually quite young. She's in her like mid-20s, but really, really tall, like as tall as most men. But is also a formidable Wise One, if there is such a thing as a non-formidable Wise One. But, she's one of those.
They don't make those.
They don't.
Seanchan and Masuri. Masuri. Are they White Tower?
No.
Or
Salidar.
Salidar Tower. Okay, so they are Salidar Tower that bent the knee to Rand. That wasn't sure their origins.
Only Salidar Aes Sedai are given some movement and stay in the palace and the servants' quarters and that sort of thing. The Tower Aes Sedai are locked down with the Wise Ones. Yeah.
Digging holes and filling them.
Yeah.
Building some good character.
Rand has obviously arranged. So we spoke a lot about, like, is the fight real? Isn't it real? Yes, it's predetermined. No one actually says outright that it was a premeditated fight and a big show or anything. But there's a lot of Rand's direct followers here that would have been acting under Rand's direct command. Like, the Wise Ones are not just choosing out of their own to come spend time. And Seanchan and Masuri, two Aes Sedai that have sworn fealty to Rand, are not just saying, maybe let's go with Perrin to Gildan. Like, Rand has put orders in place for very specific people, to Ashaman to go with him. So, like, that was all prearranged. The fight, while emotional and, as we have said, to death now, built on real differences in opinion and the schism between them, it was fuel for them to use to have a fight, for them to go for
a very convincing fight.
To even the participants.
They've even convinced... Words out of my mouth. Even convincing to the people involved, yeah. And those cracked ribs are pretty convincing.
A penny dropped for me here with Elayne as well. Like, she has been sent by Rand to specifically be the one to deal with Alejandre, because she's a skilled negotiator. She's another ruler. She carries a lot of reputation and obviously a lot of respect by being the first of Mayene. So Rand has sent her, after she was all pissed off about being pushed aside in Cairhien, of course. So Rand has said, okay, well, then there is this other job that I can send you to do. Whereas in the past, or up until now, I couldn't remember how Elayne ended up with Perrin. Like, did she just... I thought until reading this specific chapter that if Rand is sort of sidelining her, did she just decide of her own accord, like, I'm just going to go follow Perrin and follow through on my promise to Fail that I'm going to make him mine and throw the scraps back to her? Because remember that thing I read back, like, where she was quite hardcore about, I'm going to take him away from you. So I wonder if maybe she suggested to Rand, like, oh, okay, cool. You're not using me in Cairhien anymore. Maybe send me with Perrin, if she was privy to Rand's plan for Perrin. But somewhere off page, a conversation between Elayne and Rand was had, where the end result is Elayne going with Perrin to Gildan. But at least it's not just her traipsing along on her own accord. Rand had some say in it.
Which makes me wonder, who's ruling her country in her absence?
She's only got 600 shoulders. It's not a very big country. There's
like
not a lot happening there at
but
the
still,
moment. They're like,
maybe there's a mayor who can just take care of everything.
Some clerk.
The accountants are running
steward.
it. I don't know. It's a steward. Steward of Gondor.
I was just gonna say Peter. What's his Peter Ben? Peter what? The actor Ned Stark.
Peter Ben.
I forget his name, man. I can't ever remember the actor's name.
That played Ned. Sean
Ned
Bean.
Stark.
Yeah. What's
Sean Bean's in charge of
Sean
Mayene.
Bean. Yeah, Sean Bean's there. Stewart.
Not
He's gonna
speaker.
get beheaded soon.
All right.
He's gonna get sent to Cairhien.
Okay.
He does die in every movie.
I know. Great.
Yeah, so Joe Grady is not old. He's only a couple of years older than Rand.
He just looks, he's got a weathered farmer's face.
Yeah.
He's just probably outdoors a lot.
That's, I think, the point. It's like...
Because I got the impression that he was
He
fatherly,
has always been
like,
faced with the fact that he knows he could channel, so he just started drinking heavily, and he has the weathered face of an alcoholic. Eventually.
It's cool that they bonded their wives, though.
Mm.
He says to Perrin, a man likes to know his wife's safe. And I thought you could not have said that to a more agreeing recipient, right? Like Perrin's whole deal, like up until now, getting back to Cairhien and making sure Fail is safe, and then books of her being kidnapped. Like, yes, a man just wants to know his wife's safe. Perrin is...
That also being said, they are a third of the quantity of men that's on the farm training to be Ashaman, who are touching the power that's tend to make them crazy. They've the wives left over at the farm while there's these men and the husbands are gone now. And I think they're more worried about what's left with their wives on the farm to know that they're safe than anything else. Like,
Yeah.
it must be a daunting thought.
I would imagine.
Like, leaving my wife with, I don't trust them.
Crazies like me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just read that Grady has a son. That's why he's got wrinkles.
There we go. Yeah, that'll do it.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably grey or bald or both.
Yeah. Broke.
No,
Add broke.
Look, the reason I looked that up is because I want to make sure we're not confusing Grady with Dharma Flynn, who is old, with some of the other more prominent. That's what I thought.
Totally confusing.
That's exactly why I was making sure we know who is who.
Okay.
In the zoo.
All right. So, did you guys pick your favorite moments?
I did.
Willie, so eager. Tell us, what is your favorite moment?
Man, I tried to disguise it. I tried to deliberately not bring it into the books, and then you're like, oh no, that's not where it ends. Matt not being in the story, but still making Nynaeve cry was the highlight for me of everything.
So you knew exactly where your chapter ended. You just
yes,
didn't want to say
I knew
it.
exactly. I just didn't want to bring it in. I wanted to bring it. I was like, oh, okay, he's going to steal it now. He's gonna come
Well
on.
done. You succeeded. Well done.
Well, I said it.
You said it, but it was my secret moment. Just like, no, read off your notes. I'm like, yeah, that's where the chapter ends. But
Yeah,
how good is it? Like, Matt doesn't, other than being mentioned as a participant in the beginning, he doesn't feature up until right at the end of that chapter. And then it's just like, you're going to have to go to Matt now. It's like Nynaeve bawling.
Yeah, it's like a proper cry. Like, isn't she crying at first, and then Elayne says something, and then she cries even harder. Like, it's a proper cry about having to use Matt for help. Yeah, she's got a real problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's great stuff. But I mean, she has got a deep set fear. She kicked that man hard in the butt.
And she can't shake her image of him as a young troublemaker boy. I mean, he did not do himself any favors back in Emansfield, right? Like, this is a situation of his making. How about you, Joe?
It's a tough one. There's... It's about two wankers getting their comeuppance. Moghedien, mind trapped, tortured, on her belly. Yeah, man, fuck you. Get on your belly. And also, the maybe honorable mention there. Yeah, Moghedien has to come first. She'll be, and then honorable mention is the White Cloaks being defeated and put in their place as well. Although it's unfortunate it has to be done by the Seanchan, but still, fuck them too.
This has the feeling of like in one of the Heroes of Might and Magic games, if you've taken your whole army out of your castle and someone else waltzes in and they just take it.
I tried to leave little garrisons, but they don't do much, you know. It's just so that you can see the numbers of the army, you know, like, okay, I can go back and fight these guys.
No, but it is, I mean, as horrifying as it is always good to read about the Forsaken being put in their place, right? Like,
yeah.
The only disappointment there is that she hasn't actually been taken out of the equation. She is actually still around, unfortunately.
I don't know why you guys are finding pleasure in this. It's like a girl.
Yes. Shame.
Villy's drying his eyes.
Forsaken.
Villy's turned to cry. My favorite moment, I just started by saying blood and ashes, slim pickings over here. There's like strife with Nynaeve and Elayne meeting the kin, Moridin and Moghedien's torture and enslavement, the Seanchan invasion of Amadicia, two things that Jody pointed out as his favorite moments. I'm going like, oh man, it's hard to choose anything good in here. So I think my favorite moment was when Perrin leaves Cairhien and we read about his fight with Rand, and the name of the chapter making it sound quite lonely for our banished beefy boy. To see the huge list of people accompanying him, I sighed a big sigh of relief. So the chapter name being sort of misleading, and then just seeing like, oh, okay, cool. Here's that group of people that Perrin is going to travel with for quite a long time now. The culmination of which is obviously saving Fail. I mean, that's sort of a goal that they have for a long time. But I know toward the end of that section is where Perrin makes that hammer, that image that you use quite a lot, Joe, on social media and stuff.
Yes. It's not. It's like book 13. Christina just mentioned it to me the other day. It's so long until that happens.
Oh, man.
She's sitting right here. When Perrin makes the hammer, what book is that, 13? 13. Yep, 13.
And is it Grady or Neil that helps him make it? Like one of them starts...
Who are the Ashraman that help him? Nield? Yeah.
Nield.
Probably those two, Grady and Nield. Yeah.
Okay. It's one of them that's standing there as Perrin's doing it, and then it just feels right to him, like he starts channeling into the hammer while he's doing it. Yeah. Oh, wow. So the penultimate...
Like a long time. Yeah, and also like saving Moraine from the tower, that also happens very, very late, probably 12 or 13. Same book.
Towers of Midnight.
What? Yeah.
I don't remember.
She just told me she read it like a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
That she told me that it was happening in her book, which is the 13. Got to be.
Yeah. But here, at least, Grady and Nield are being attached to Perrin. So Perrin is meeting the people that are with him.
This is where it all...
It's long down the track, but it's coming.
Yeah, it's a good setup here. Like everybody's now finally moving again. You know.
Yes.
Now we just need the girls in Ebou Dar to find that fucking bowl and get this done with.
Yes.
And then we can all start going places again.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So to our listeners, send in your favorite moments, your theories, your opinions, your corrections, or just say hi. You can do so using the social media links in the episode description, or just tweet us at @bloodandashpod. There are also links to our Discord and our website where you can buy some t-shirts, leave a voice message we could play on the podcast, or just send an old school text message. And while you're doing all of that, you can prepare for our next episode, which will cover chapters 28, called Bread and Cheese, through to the end of chapter 31, called Mashiara. Willie, look of recognition on your face there?
Nothing. I'm not giving anything away.
That word sounded familiar to me, so I went ahead and I looked up the translation, and it is heart of my heart. Could it be? Does that ring no bells for you, Joe?
Joe.
A certain rogue warder trying to chase down the heart of his heart? Oh.
Okay.
The penny
I have read ahead.
Fingers crossed.
But I have read a couple of chapters ahead.
Doesn't
I've read
matter
two,
in
mostly
this
Matt.
by the way, so
Well, Matt.
something different. I got you all excited for nothing.
Now, instead of recording a whole separate message, I'll just say it here at the end of this episode that our next episode will also be delayed by 2 weeks because we have another leg of the tripod going off and doing things which seemingly are more important than recording a podcast every single fortnight. But we'll let Willie enjoy the camping trip and see everyone 2 weeks after that. Maybe we'll do a little bonus episode. If I make any YouTube videos about the TV show, I'll release them in the podcast feed as audio only, so you don't have to go find a screen to watch our YouTube clips. But until then, I will say to you, sleep well, and wake.
Very good evening.
Later, skaters.